Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge a historical shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area, and we recognize these original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda this morning? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that the April 16, 2026 agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of April 2nd? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that the April 2nd, 2026 regular meeting minutes be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. So we do have a public meeting today, so could I have a mover and a seconder to move into the public meeting? Councillor Shortreed and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that Council adjourns its regular session at 9:02 a.m. in order to proceed into a public meeting for the purpose of, in accordance with the Building Act Code Act 1992 SO 1992 Chapter 23 regarding building permit fee changes and zoning bylaw amendment application AHZBA 00126 McKay.
All in favor? It's carried. Could Mr. O'Callaghan, could you come forward and give us your report?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So this property is currently zoned rural and designated rural under the official plan. The surrounding uses are generally rural and hamlet residential, and the lands are currently developed. An area of approximately 0.58 hectares is proposed to be severed and added to the adjacent lands to the north. The retained and benefiting lands are currently each developed with a single family dwelling. The retained lands will continue to have access via a right-of-way, and the benefiting lands will continue to have frontage on Highway 35 as a result of the proposed lot addition. The purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the property from rural to rural with an exception, to recognize the deficient lot frontage. The proposed rezoning is to fulfill a condition of the application for consent being file number H-028/25. Notice of the rezoning was posted on the property, circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, posted on the township website, and circulated to all prescribed agencies. No written objections have been received to date, and it is recommended that council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment as circulated.
Thank you. Do any members of council have questions for Mr. O'Callaghan? Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant present and wish to speak to the application?
I believe their agent is attending via Zoom. Yeah.
It's Ted Williams here. I'm agent for the applicant, and I don't have anything further to add, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the application, either online or present? Hearing none, could we have a resolution? Could you read the resolution, please?
I can, for sure. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt report PL 03426 regarding the rezoning of lands located at part of Lot 28, Concession A, Geographic Township of Sherburne, McKay, submitted by Sean O'Callahan dated April 16, 2026, and that council directs the bylaw be tabled for consideration during its regular meeting.
Could I have a mover and a seconder? Counselor Richards, Counselor Barry, all in favor? That's carried. And so anything else associated with this application is under bylaws? Okay, so could I have a mover and a seconder then to move back into the regular session?
Sorry, Mayor Danielson, I apologize. We have one more item in the public and it's for building. We have the building fees, 2 items.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So I guess that would be Mr. Moore that would present that. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, thank you.
O'Callahan.
Good morning, Mayor
morning.
and Council. Yes, this morning I am proposing a slight increase in the building permit fees. Basically, the genesis of which was for the sewage maintenance inspection program. Because we are a fee for service, and in order to help with the aid of remedial action, we're going to be probably placing some orders. And to recoup the costs of staff's time, there will be a post-order reinspection fee. That's the 350, and the reinspection fee of 150 if people are not. And this does pertain to other building aspects as well, but basically the reinspection fee raised to 150 kind of represents the further fee if people weren't ready for their inspection during the septic program, so.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Thanks, Greg. It's not a question, more of an observation. I got a bit confused with reinspection of the reinspection. It felt like a bit of
Yeah.
a circular terminology and I wasn't sure exactly what it meant. And if there's any way that we, that could just be clear for the public, that would be just great.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, the sewage maintenance program is not a reinspection program. The reinspection in my fee schedule is to go back a second time for an inspection. So the terminology was, to your point, was a little bit confusing. We've tried to clear that up with naming the program now sewage system maintenance. So.
Any other questions on the fee schedule?
There, you have it. What was the previous fee?
I'm sorry, I have to ask, are there any questions from the public? Which you would have to come forward to the microphone and so that the public can hear you.
We've already taken care of ours, so.
Okay, thank you. So we have a resolution to receive the report.
We do. Would you like me to read the resolutions?
Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Short-Reed and Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that council receives report BLDG 0626 regarding the proposed changes to the building permit fees presented during a public meeting in accordance with the Building Code Act 1992 SO 1992 Chapter 23, and that council directs the proposed changes to the building permit fees be tabled for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. So you'll see some more information under bylaws later on in the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to move back to the regular session? Councillor Short-Reed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that council adjourns its public meeting at 9:10 a.m. and regular session resume.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a number of delegations this morning. First up is Mr. Dyke, the CAO for the county, who is going to speak to the county's affordability and governance study. So if you'd like to come forward. Good morning, Mr. Dyke.
Morning, Your Worship and members of council. Thanks for having me today. I always regret my only being 5'6". Every time I come here, I feel like I'm peering over a fence when I want to talk to.
So members of council have all received copies of the reports that were presented to county council. So I think if maybe you could give us a Coles Notes version of where we are and then provide an opportunity for members of council to.
Absolutely, thank you. So I'll do a relatively high level version of the presentation that you may have seen online or seen in your package. I won't go through the whole thing. The whole package, the presentation was about 45 minutes long to county council last week, so I'll spare you that part of it. I think initially start out was talk about the purpose and the intent and how we're here. As part of the going back about 6-8 months ago and putting the budget together at the county level. As I mentioned to county council as well as the public was putting together, it was one of the more complicated budget processes I've been involved in my 30-year experience in the municipal sector. Just in the sense, it was just trying to balance the increasing complexity of the external financial demands on our organizations in relationship to the amount of money we were able to collect and where the money collects, and doing an analysis on the impact of the ever-increasing need to draw greater sources of revenue from basically a fixed revenue source, which is our property tax base. And in putting that together, and in 26 budget, I think really highlighted because we saw significant increases with respect to the external demands on us at the county. I can speak directly to the county level, but some of them are applicable back to the local level as well. Roughly about 40% of the revenues we collect are actually go towards external costs that we have no control over at the county level. Those are your social services costs, your housing costs, our fees into MPAC and things of that nature. And one of the external costs included that is the library service, which I'll speak to specifically because it was kind of like the harbinger of what were some of the issues we were facing. So you're looking at 40% of your increases tied to external costs, it actually starts to make you realize the ability you have what I would term as your disposable income to go to community services, be it your parks, be it your roads maintenance, things of that nature, or the things that make your community. Those are the softer costs that get lost when you're trying to balance and mitigate an ever-increasing tax rate increase with your demands going forward. And the external demands aren't decreasing any. With respect to social services, and which we purchased through contract with the city of Kawartha Lakes, and this isn't by any stretch of the imagination a commentary on the level of service we get or the quality of service we get. It's just a fact on the funding formula that comes through the province. Is we've had greater than 20% increases on social services year over year for the past 4 years. 2026 was an even greater piece. We're looking at when you combine housing, social services, and childcare services, the increase is greater than 40% over the year before. And so you're looking at those numbers coming in with the demands on the municipalities. Councils are being forced, because of the system we work within, are being forced to make extraordinary measures to mitigate the tax rate increase. And those generally are decreases in the investment in their capital infrastructure. And that's what happened at the county level. There was $500,000 taken out of the investment in the capital infrastructure, it sounds like a tool to use. However, it's got longer term impact. So we take $500,000 out of our capital infrastructure budget in 2026. We basically created $1 million hole for 2027. And the county currently carries an $18 million infrastructure gap. That to fulfill the obligations of the infrastructure gap, you're looking at a 3 to 5% rate increase just to cover that $18 million over the next 10-year period, and you actually won't collect the $18 million. So when you start looking at those numbers, you have to step back and think about how are we prioritizing how we spend our money. Particularly when you look at our ability to raise revenue is significantly limited by the Municipal Act, and it's almost 100% relatable to the property tax itself. It's a regressive tax. It has no bearing on how much people make. It's based on the value of your property. And when you live in an area like ours, the value of your properties rapidly increase or can rapidly increase and outstrip people's ability to pay based on fixed incomes, given our age and retirement going forward. And also, Halliburton is, while not unique, separates itself from other areas of the province like southwestern Ontario, the 401 corridor municipalities in eastern Ontario, where our assessment diversity is not strong. We currently collect 90% of our revenue from the residential property tax. The provincial average on that is 22%. So we're roughly 5 times greater reliance on residential property tax here than the province as a whole. Now, those numbers are a bit skewed from the GTHA, where you have large tracts of large industrial commercial, but it paints the picture is that we don't have that cushion to rely on going forward. So it's back on the property tax. And so that, when looking at those numbers going forward, and you look at some of the other future obligations we have going on top, because that was just the previous ones we know about. The unfunded liabilities we have going forward in areas like housing, and then at the local level, your policing costs, your own infrastructure costs, and things of that nature. With respect to housing, the City of Kawartha Lakes passed it's called the Deeply Affordable Housing Program or Plan in last fall. We're getting the financial numbers back on it I think in June, coming forward. But at the high level right now, the county's obligation over a 10-year period in that plan is $38.9 million. We currently do not have reserves set aside to cover the $38 million. So that will be an addition to what we're going forward. So even as those numbers are mitigated by half, that's still a significant increase to our budget, which would have to be passed on to the tax base. So that's a long way of explaining how we got here, and what we started looking at is how we're spending our money. And so part of it, what we started looking at was what is eventually being called an affordability question, is that are we maintaining in the current system we run, our municipalities remaining affordable? And one of the risks we have going forward is with how we're being forced to collect money and how we're having to spend our money, and the limited ability on the discretionary side of it, is you'll see the softer community services become underfunded as your current monies are directed toward the harder services or the legislative services that we have no control over. And so you could end up with erosion of service level at the local level because of the inability to raise the extra funds within the current structure. I think evidence of this, and I say this just for a reference because it's the clearest indication of what can happen, is with the library services, where we were forced to reduce the amount of money go to the library to mitigate a tax rate increase, because we had to collect the money for the services that we currently have, we purchase or are legislatively required to put into. And so that's just and you look at some of your lower tier colleagues in Minden Hills and in Dysart, with their downtown revitalization programs, the level of money they have to invest in their communities to boost from the tourism industry and things like that, and yourselves as well in the tourism industry, is that money, that's where the erosion of the discretionary revenue spending goes to. And so that is where I think it's important that we look at and get a clear understanding as to what the landscape actually is. What are we spending money on in comparison to other areas? Because at the end of the day, we have a 20,000 population base over the 4 lower tiers and the upper tier. And how is that money being spent? Is it being spent in the best way possible? And is there a way that we can address it to make sure that we're maintaining our current level of community investment, but also allowing ourselves to create capacity within that investment structure that allows Haliburton County to remain Haliburton County. The things that made it great, the things that made it one of the tourism destinations of the province, that requires investment. And how do we make sure that investment maintains? And so we need to make sure we can maintain and build capacity to do that, but also allow the people that currently live here to remain in their houses, and also remain in their houses and participate in the activities across the community base. And so this is an economic exercise. This isn't a commentary on how services are provided. This isn't a commentary on the quality of the service provision across the 5 entities. This is an economic exercise. How do we remain affordable in the current structure we're in? We're currently behind a bit, what I would say behind a bit of an 8 ball, and I've been making these comments for a long time with respect to the current fiscal contract that the province has with municipalities in Ontario. Ontario is the only province in Canada that is responsible for the large ticket items that we're currently forced to pay. Ontario is the only province in Canada that pays for housing. Ontario municipalities are the only province, in Ontario, the only ones in Canada that pay for social services directly, and the list goes on doctor recruitment, healthcare. It's a burden that we have in Ontario that's not shared across the country. And having said all that, we're currently being asked to solve the complexities and intricacies of the 21st century problems in a system of governance that was created in the 19th century. And a revenue system that was created in the late 19th century and it hasn't been modernized with respect to the modernization of the demands being placed upon us. And for that reason, I think it's important, and this is the message that was provided to County Council, which was supported, is we need to understand where we sit right now. What does the landscape look right now? Anecdotally, a lot of anecdotal answers. Yes, we do this, and this is what it costs, and this is where it is, and this is how we compare the places, but we don't actually have a definite answer. There was a very detailed study completed in 2022, but it was a service delivery review, and this is a different animal to what we're talking about now. The quality of information that was collected as part of the service delivery review is very good and very meaningful, and will be used as one of the foundational documents going forward. But it doesn't speak to the general premise of the adequacy of the delivery system on an affordability quotient going forward. And so that's where we're at now. And to understand what our current landscape is and then offer options as to going forward. What's the future and what are the options available going forward? And there's a lot of options. There's multiple options that can be looked at to change how things are done. There is no preconceived notion as to what that would be going forward. But I think it's important that all that information be brought forward and people can look at it, examine, ask questions to it. And that's where we're at right now. Did you want me to, I can ramble for a long time here, or do you want to?
Well,
I can take questions anytime, Your Worship, if that's.
The only other thing that I would want to add to that is that there appears to be increasing pressure coming from the province for all municipalities and regions to make change. And by our being proactive and looking at our own systems here, I think that, we might stave off any orders coming from the province to say, here, you will be doing this whether you like it or not. This allows us to determine our own future as opposed to somebody jamming it down our throats. That's pretty black and white way to put it, but I think that there's some validity to that, and this will help us and put us in I would say a fairly decent light with the province.
Yeah, and just to echo your comments, Your Worship, I agree 100% because I'm always a believer and I'd rather be at the front of the bus than the back. And if we can demonstrate that we understand what we're doing, we understand how to prioritize our funding, and with respect to the province, and notwithstanding some of the issues you're seeing in southwestern Ontario, the province has given no indication they're going to force anything. However, they have made indications that there's expectations on how municipalities are going to function going forward. And that is prioritization on efficiencies in areas that anything that deals with growth and development or capacity building within the communities. They're expecting those to be examined and putting things in place that meet the targets, or at least the intended targets of the province going forward on the growth and development. And I think those will become integral parts as we go forward anytime you're looking to access funding from the province. Right. And so the term I used in my initial report to County Council was, well, let's make sure our own house is in order first. Right. Because, and this is, I'm not absolving the province of any blame, is in my report in the briefing note I did provide to the minister. There are significant gaps in the fiscal contract and operational aspect of how between the province and the municipalities across Ontario that need to be addressed. However, I think to have any strength to the argument, we have to show that we've done everything we can to mitigate to show that we are spending the money in the best way we can. Our investment strategies are the best we can do it to achieve the stated goals. And then we can go to the province and talk about the inadequacies of the property tax as a primary source of revenue. We can talk to the province with the inadequacies of their current system of infrastructure investment. We can talk to the inadequacies of the current contract for us to find alternate sources of revenue that are consumptive based and not property tax based. Without doing this work, I think we don't have much of a strong point to go from, because they always say, well, what are you doing? And this puts us on a strong foundation to have those hard comments or conversations with the province, either through our relationship with East Ontario Wardens Caucus, through AMO, through Roma, pick one. And I think we need to be ready to answer the hard questions about what are we doing?
So questions from council. Councilor Barry.
Just in regards to what are we doing, with the service delivery review, I don't follow exactly where things are sort of laying with the other municipalities, but I know here we've done a lot of joint RFPs for, you know, for trucks and for different projects. And so through that, there's been cost savings. Is the county keeping sort of tally of all of the cost savings that have happened through that process to date?
With respect to those type of savings, yes, we can identify from the time the new process were put in place to now, you can track the changes. The difficulty we're facing now is that level of savings is insufficient to meet the demands we're talking about, right? And we're looking for that clarity as well, because yes, there were some good steps taken in certain areas that did provide more efficiencies and savings. You were getting generally some one-off savings on some capital pieces through joint tendering purchasing, but sustainable year-over-year cost savings, operational cost savings, were not reaching the levels that we're talking about from when we're looking into the millions of dollars of unfunded financial liabilities going forward. It's a valuable piece, and it's an exercise that needs to be looked at greater. The implementation of the 2022 service delivery review from a percentage basis was quite a ways away from full implementation. But even said that, it still doesn't address the magnitude of changes happened in the last, 4 years on the financial demands being placed on the municipalities.
And I will say that I'm quite proud of the fact that Algonquin Highlands has been quite proactive in working with the county in our purchasing, is much more so than some other municipalities.
So Your Worship, I just add one point to Councillor Barry's question, or my response to Councillor Barry is, and that's why I just started saying this isn't about a commentary on how things are being done. It's the impact of the system we're working within is limiting our ability to do. Right. So it's not about the efficiencies, the effectiveness of how things have been done over the last little while, It's not about that. This is an economic exercise.
Go ahead.
Will there be a good look at the shortfalls caused through downloading?
Yep. Yeah. So, and again, sorry, Your Worship, I mean, that is part of the process, and that's why we're looking at, it's important to, so it's a multi-level process in the sense, it's like, first of all, we've identified a problem, I think, into delivery at County Council. County Council understands that we have a problem we need to look at. Now understand, okay, what does our current situation look like? What is the current landscape we have with respect to our current structure, our current service delivery methodology going forward? And then what options exist within that, right from minor tinkering to status quo, all the way through to single tier, right? I mean, but there's also steps in between. Like, it's not one or the other. It's not a binary equation. There's multiple steps in there going forward. And so by doing a study in the fashion we're doing it, both the local councils and county council will have the information that identifies that information. Here's what we currently have, and this is the cost associated with it. Here are the different areas or options that are available going forward and the costs associated with those. And so decisions are being made on a multiple level of options, not here it is. We're also structuring the standpoint, and I can speak to the details of the study in a minute. We're also, unlike a traditional study being done, we're not asking the consultant to come back with a preferred outcome. It's just straightly, this is what we have now. Here are the different options that are available that we believe will solve or address the principal problem of the study. And then here's your information, and you're making a decision based on your understanding and commentary on the different options that would be available.
Or just one other comment to make before I go to the next question is that, there has been some question about the timeline that has been set for the study. And this was something that was brought up and discussed at County Council. The point was raised that we should be providing information to candidates who are looking at the possibility of running in the next election, ensuring that if somebody is, for instance, there may be people who are running on a single tier platform without sufficient knowledge, to be speaking. This will provide everyone with the knowledge that is going to come out of this study well in advance of the actual elections taking place, or before nominations close, actually. I'll go to Councillor Richards.
Can you give me an example of what consumptive revenue would look like?
It can be anything from the best one, and this is full disclosure, I was on a AMO group that came up with this idea. A portion of the HST.
A
Right?
portion of, sorry.
HST. So any tax that people, they're coming to your community and they're spending money and you're taking the tax off that money that's being provided to you to consume a service, right? And so the burden is, and this is one of the areas, particularly in Halliburton and places like Muskoka, Prince Edward County experience the same thing, is where you have such a large influx of transient people coming into your community over time. Yes, they're bringing money into your community, but you're having to plan your services. We're 20 just shade under 21,000 people in total. Our population peaks in summer are just shade under 45,000 people. So certain services we provide on in the villages, water and sewer, roads, bridges, that we're actually having to plan to a 45,000 population hit based on a 20,000 population draw off your property taxes, which is their inadequacy. The consumptive tax would be if we were to receive it's HST, but the most important one I think is actually land transfer tax. Is if you if the municipalities were to receive a share of land transfer tax, and 1% was what was banted around in 2015, I believe, 16. The money that could collect off the land transfer tax would dwarf what you collect out of your property tax and mitigate any need to continually raise your tax base. I was city manager in Cambridge at the time, went through, we had our infrastructure gap was $167 million. 3 years of a 1% share of the land transfer tax split with the region of Waterloo would have eradicated our infrastructure gap in 3.5 years and not have to raise one additional penny from the tax base. And so those are the type of things we're like. City of Toronto is subject to the City of Toronto Act versus the Municipal Act. They're already allowed to do that, and they currently do it now. And it lessens the burden on the residential taxpayers, or even in their case, the commercial industrial taxpayers, to raise the funds for the large ticket items around the hard infrastructure numbers.
You spoke to or made mention of the library at one point in your presentation about the, that creating part of the burden. If you could maybe address that a little bit, I'm quite sure that we have someone in the room who's quite interested in hearing.
Well, it's from a stand. I use it as an example, not in sense to incite the library discussion again. It's more around, it's the choices that within the system we're currently forced to work within. Councils, municipal councils at both the local and the county level are forced to make extraordinary decisions to address an extraordinary situation. So under a normal circumstances where you had a properly dedicated flow of influx into things that you can dedicate revenues to, social services, to housing, like that, and you can mitigate how that's done, you wouldn't be forced to pull from a community service because you have the discretion to do so, to augment or mitigate a rate increase due to a 20-some% in your social services rate, right? Or you're not forced to take money away from any other of the community services that happen at the local level, be it your trails maintenance, your park maintenance, things of that nature. Because you have the overriding burdens of the capital investment piece as well. So it eliminates creates the opportunity where you can balance the needs so that your investment within your community-based services is maintained to the service level the council has established for itself, versus having to make the decision of, do I fund the new park, or do I fund the downtown revitalization, or do I fund the library, versus paying for housing, social services, and the like.
Other questions, Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Question I raised to county, it would be great if you could speak to it again today, and that is, could you talk us through how you foresee the decisions being made, given that we've got upper tier and we also have lower tier, and there will have to be buy-in to whatever model is chosen. There will have to be buy-in at lower tier for upper tier to make that decision. So how do you foresee that could work? And also, if I might add to that question, when do you think the model of decision-making will be decided? Do you think it will be before we get the final report, for example, so that we know we already have our ducks in a row? This is how the model will be chosen before we know what the model's options are?
I I think at a high, through your worship, I think at a high level I can, but I think to do your question justice, Counselor, is I'm gonna go back a little bit and talk about the process itself and how it's being put in place. So, so talk to, and Mayor Danielson brought up the thing about the time frame. Yes, it's a 90-day time window, which is relatively tight. However, because of the work that was done in 2022 in the service delivery review, that is the data collection piece that invokes the greatest amount of time putting in. I think the strategy corp study one, if you looked at the entire study, it's about 900 pages long with that data. So that data is still relevant today. So you have that piece that's being used as a foundation document going into the current study being done. So now we can focus on the financial and structural piece of the question. So as part of that 90-day process, going forward, there is that data collection piece where there will be built into that within that 90 days inflection points for the local councils, for the community, for staff at both levels to provide inputs and data into the generation itself. The approval side of it is the simplest from a structural standpoint, is the simplest part of it. The study itself is being released without comment or approval. It's just endorsement of here's the study we're commissioned. Yes, it met the terms of the scope of reference for the study, and it's being released for public consumption. That is scheduled for the target we have, and the expectation put on the consultant is that's July 31st of this year. As we go forward, and that allows, and that date's important in the sense that we thought it was, because we're in election year, that it was important that the study be released in its final form to allow, and that's 3 weeks left in the nomination period, roughly 3 weeks left in the nomination period for the 2026 election. So there's a lot of opportunity for questions, a lot of opportunity for analysis, for people making decisions going into the election, not just candidates, but the electorate as well, right, going forward. I've been tasked with coming out now, granted subject to a new council, but the current council has tasked me with, once the study is done, it is then reintroduced in its form with explanation, background, similar to what we're having now, just there'll be more meat on the bone, to the new council for direction as to what to do next. The expectation is that we engage in the full discussion on the options. Right. So the phase 2 of the study with the consultant, because I think it's important to maintain that third party arm's length side of it right through the process, is that they would be engage local councils and county council of the day with the analysis of the options and talk about next steps, talk about things like implementation, talk about things like that, because the implementation period would vary depending on what option was ultimately selected by the council of the day. That will be a 2-level discussion, and 2-level approval. Just by that's legislative, right? So it has to come before the local councils for decision, and it also would go to the county council for decision. Right? From a process mapping standpoint, that's the easiest part of the process. It's just the delivery of that information, ensuring everybody has that adequate information. You've created the opportunity for robust engagement, both at the community and elected levels going forward. And so our goal at the county under current instructions is that it would be reintroduced at the county council table at their first working meeting of the new council.
Go ahead.
So let's take a stab in the dark here and say there's a chance that the 4 municipalities don't agree on the model that is preferred by them. Then what happens?
Well, I mean, that itself, it depends on what you mean by agree. I would state that, and this is just my opinion, if 3 of the 4 municipalities agreed on something, then there could be the application sent to the minister saying we want to do X. I don't think you need unanimous support. It would be great if it was, just from a community standpoint, if it was. But I think it's going to be somewhere in that area, and it would be down that way. I don't think you're going to be looking at needing unanimous support, but you would probably need a majority of the municipalities in agreement with the whatever the decision is.
So if there was one municipality that could not agree on, say, what the preferred option was,
Mhm.
and wanted to opt out completely, like, I'm wondering if they would ever have that ability.
Well, I mean, I guess technically, yes, but on my answer on two, that would be, the application would be going to the minister saying, we think we should be X, including the dissenting municipality. So that there is a decision, the actual ultimate decision-making authority is at the ministerial level, right? I just, from my perspective, from what I've seen, there is not a municipality in Algonquin County that can survive on their own. Economically.
Other questions, Councillor Richards?
So just to kind of continue on those lines. With the next council of county, they would be making the decision into whatever moves forward. Would whatever that decision be have to be agreed within the lower tier municipality first? Or can the mayor, deputy mayor just, like, for example, if it was a 3-2 vote in here and the mayor and deputy mayor went against the rest of this council, is that what is
No, what
being proposed?
sorry, through your worship, but no, so once you're at that level of decision making, it's the decision, the local council decision is part of the equation, right? This is what the local said, but it's ultimately county council that has a final say. It's not that way. It is when the final decisions come, with the information going into the ministry would be the decision of the local council would be part of the submission into the province, right? So the voice of the local council is heard as part of the process. I think that answers your question, right? It's not local, sorry, just to make sure I'm clear. It's not that your information is just provided to your county council representative, it goes up and then county council makes a decision and that's the decision that goes to the ministry. No, it's the decisions of all appropriate authorities are part of the submission up to the province.
I'm going to Deputy Mayor Dayu, then Councillor Barry.
As we're talking finances, would there be a weighted decision on the part of a couple of municipalities?
My interpretation of the county procedure bylaw is no. This is not, it's an economic study, but it's a structural piece, and it would not be weighted. Again, and even if it was, that would just be the vote of county council, right? And it would be referenced as a weighted vote. The decisions of the local councils are still applicable in the submission to the province.
Councillor Barry, then Councillor Richards.
Just with your comment about each of the municipality would not be able to survive on its own. I'm guessing that isn't just a Haliburton County issue, that's municipalities across Ontario.
Yeah, I would say just if you look at municipalities of our size and just the economic demands and burdens placed on municipalities under 5,000 people as standalone entities would be, I'm not gonna say, I shouldn't say it's not 100%, but it would be very difficult to meet your financial obligations as a single tier entity.
Go ahead.
Will there be a look at other provinces when you're saying that that Ontario is, unique in the sense that, there just hasn't been the same level of assistance, or there hasn't been the same level of cutbacks and downloading and that type of thing? I'm just wondering, when you haven't had impact updated and there has been other fundings that have just been on hold for, over a decade, how that plays into the portrait.
That part of the equation, so it's a kind of a two-level answer to your question. So yes, I mean, the things you raise are important. There are things that the province has to address as part of the fiscal contract they have with the municipalities. Its applicability to us in this study is not a direct correlation, because what we're saying to them is you need to correct these things. And here's how we've addressed our financial piece going forward. But so, as I mentioned at county council, this isn't the silver bullet to all our problems. Like, even with any change, and I'm not even talking about what form that would take, there still needs to be action by the provincial government to modify how they fund and how they allow us to function right? This is just a step to making sure it gets us closer and gives us a better position to lobby the provincial government in the areas you're talking about, saying we've done everything we can. Now it's up to you, right? And so it's kind of a two-level piece. But one's not predicated on the other as part of the study.
Councillor Richards.
Just to kind of go back to my previous question, understanding that the lower tier municipalities information, as long as counties information would be put forward to the province. And we somewhat know that the province is interested in smaller municipalities pushing forward with amalgamation wherever they can. It sounds to me like a lower tier municipality may perhaps not carry a whole lot of weight in that mission. And even though the, you know, as you stated, it's to the benefit of all, there's a lot of strengths and weaknesses in each lower tier municipality here. And I would understand that a lot of that will likely be addressed. Things like disparities in infrastructure needs, debt loads, etc. It's a lot to work out. So I can understand why a lower tier may not be satisfied with a model that is decided upon. So how does a local council sort of fight for their township within what you're proposing?
That's a very good question, but I think it's a matter of the understanding of what you're fighting for, right? If you're fighting for historic structure, if you're fighting for a historic operational model, is one thing. What we're, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong, like I have an opinion on structures, but what I'm saying is, and this is a reason why we're looking at it from the standpoint, this, and I'm repeating myself on purpose here, this is economics, right? This is an economic affordability assessment going forward. It's not about a lack of culture in a community. It's not it's not about an inability of a community, of a lower tier, or even the county to effectively provide a service. It's not about that, right? It's about having a service level that's affordable, right? And by affordability, I mean the standpoint is you're meeting the needs of the community, both the legislative needs of the community, but also the desires of the community, what they want to see in their entity, right? And boundary adjustments and structural changes don't change your community identity. There's lots of examples across the province of restructured communities dating back to the regionalization in the early 70s through to the large scale amalgamations happened in 1998 and 2000, where the cultural identity of communities, small c communities, has been maintained in some cases for the past 50 years. This is about creating a piece where you're allowing the people that reside within your community and operate business within your community can afford to continue to do so without unnecessary burden, because we're spending money in a certain fashion, right? And I'm not even saying what that fashion is. So that's the exercise we'll take. This is how we spend our money now, in relationship to how much we collect, what our current fiscal obligations are, what are our unfunded financial obligations over the next 5, 10, 15-year period, and do the math, right? And then, okay, and this is what it costs to run this particular system. And then there's 3 or 4 different options of different systems. What's it cost to run those systems? And it's not like a 1-year piece, it's what's it cost to run those systems over a period of time. And so by doing that, that's how I would equate, and I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's how you're equating it. That is the fighting for your community, is making sure that you can maintain what makes your community is still there, that people can enjoy living here, that people don't become house poor within the geographic entity that they're in, is that because we were able to mitigate spending in certain areas, but it's always not about the equation of a dollar for dollar cost savings, right? Because there's aggregated savings and there's realized savings, right? You can aggregate your savings on paper and say they're going to be X. And then your realized cost savings are the ones that happen once you actually implement, right? Because there's things that jump around in the implementation phase. You also have to look at it from the standpoint of creating an element of cost containment within your organizations as well, because you may not actually get into massive reductions of tax rates, but you're mitigating the need to go back and ask for more because you're containing the cost within the money you're currently collecting. And now you can divert it to specific things that are community-based versus everything going external or whatever the case may be. My opinion, it gives greater financial flexibility in decision-making to councils, whatever form they take. And so that's why we've structured the study in that fashion, because, and we do, and this is all serious, this is a community benefit study. How do we create the financial model within our collective communities and the aggregated community of Haliburton County that meets the needs of the people that live here, but also keeps it affordable to live here?
Councillor Barry, and then Deputy Mayor Diane.
Does the impact of like mental health and I guess different types of social impact, does that play into the study at all?
From an operator, so a couple levels, yes, at two different levels. So part of the from a pure structural standpoint, one of the gaps we've identified is, and from a service delivery standpoint, is there are gaps within our community in the areas you're talking about within mental health, addiction, harm reduction. There are certain, we currently pay for certain level of service through CKL that defines a service this way, but there are nuances within the community that aren't addressed under that current structure. So we're looking at, that's one of the things we identified as area of consistent investment at the community level to ensure that all residents of your community are addressed, in particular, not in particular, but as identified, the most vulnerable in your community as well. Because there are gaps there that need to be addressed that probably should be addressed at the provincial level that aren't being done, that somebody needs to pay for, right? And we kind of sit back and blame the province, or actually take action and do it. And we're choosing to take action and address those needs. Healthcare professional recruitment's another one. It's a burden that has been unfairly placed on municipalities. And we can all probably agree that it is a cost that should belong someplace else, but that's not the way the current system works, right? So now we're investing in that area as well. At the county level, in recognition of that, we created the community wellness levy, which is up 0.5% per year, and the tax base is specifically directed to those type of issues that are unfunded in any other means to create a system of currency on it. But because that is a positive extraordinary measure that we took because of the system we were in, because we didn't have the $200,000 a year to plunk away dedicated to it. We had to go find it in a different manner. We're hoping however this plays out, then those type of extraordinary measures won't be required. It will be able to be built in a normative way of doing your fiscal planning for the entity. So that's on the operational standpoint. And we're also dealing with, like, we're not unsympathetic to the impact of change, right? On the people that both in the community and currently work within the 5 organizations that are here. And we've built into the program supports for people that work for the county and the local municipalities as we go through this process. As you know, it's funny, it's because I've been through it. I was through it in 1999. I have a full appreciation on the impact it does have on people. We're not I'm empathetic to that. And that was one of the problems with the process that was put in place in 1999. Is that it was a very top-down approach to the thing. It was just like, boom, it was decided. There was very little public engagement. There was almost zero staff engagement other than data. You hold this data, we need it from you. This program has been set up to have a very robust piece of community engagement. There will be a piece of staff engagement. There will be staff supports as we go through the process to make sure everybody's well informed, is doing well as best we can until the end. Because as a project standpoint, 90 days and into January or whatever of 2027 seems a very short period of time. But when you're living within that chaos of that entity, it's not a short period of time. Right. And so we're recognizing that as has been built into the process as well, is where we're very respectful of the impact it will have internally. And I'm an employee as well. right? And for making sure, because I know what it was like when I lived through it the first time, and I wasn't fortunate enough to be in a very senior position at that time, and that's a mistake we won't make again.
Deputy Mayor Dagan.
Further to the question on defending our individual municipalities and all of this, let's say there are three models that are presented and there are votes across the whole board. It's basically an impasse. Each municipality has done the math and realized that this would be better for my community, and someone else says this would be better for my community, and we are at an impasse. Does that mean there is a no-go decision and we stop? Or at that point, have we already triggered the province and the province would then retain the right to make the decision on our behalf?
Through your worship, I think there's two answers to your question, Councillor. Is the first one is being, and it is very gentleman, and by no means am I trying to be flippant. We are creatures of the province. The province can make pretty much any decision one of us at any given time. Have you seen? The likelihood of that is very remote, I would think at this point. Provide, like, because we're taking steps. What you would see, what I would anticipate, any one of the municipalities could petition the province, right? And the province would be act, and then they need to be into a full-on facilitation program, right? So I think there's a mechanism in place, but I would think it would be a mechanism that wouldn't be overly authoritative in nature. I think it would be somebody coming in and saying, okay, what are the differences? What are the gaps? What are, like, how far apart are you really? Right? Because as we're all aware, with these type of decisions, some people can get tunnel vision, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you're focused on this and not realizing, well, you're actually only this far apart on a decision, right? And so I see it more being that type of thing than all of a sudden saying, you know, your time's up, we're going to tell you what to do. I think it's the process will be the process.
Any other questions? Councillor Richards.
Would there, as part of this process, be consideration given by the consultants into models for representation? For example, you know, we've seen within Algonquin Highlands issues when we were amalgamated here into Algonquin Highlands, with those former townships holding different weights at this table. There's two representing Stanhope, for example. I've seen it in larger municipalities where, you know, there's quite a disparity between, say, a downtown core and those rural parts of the community that have amalgamated. They have very different needs. And there's a lot of complaint about, you know, who gets what and what's important. Throw strong mayor powers in on top of that, it creates quite a quagmire. Is there going to be methodology through the consultants in how those things are handled? I'm sure there's lessons learned from previous amalgamations throughout Ontario, but is that going to be a part of the study?
It's not going to be. It's not going to be part of this phase of the study. It'll be part of the subsequent phase of this, the implementation phase, because it's going to be obviously dependent upon what decision is made, right? And those are all factors in place. And you're exactly correct that some of the decisions that were made on a purely political basis in 1999 and 2000 ended up with some unwieldy councils, just the way they were structured. I can speak for Quinte West when Trenton, Frankfurt, Sydney, and Murray became City of Quinte West. We ended up of a municipality of 45,000 people. We had 14 council members, right? Just because they played the political balancing game between the structures of whatever. But I think when you're into the implementation phase, depending the decision made will obviously dictate what the implementation is, and it may or may not affect representation. The fact is, if entities still exist, right? That's a different piece, but that would all be part of the analysis done on the implementation phase on whatever decision is made as based on representation, based on anything. If you're into that type of structural change, if it's any other option, a lot of it will be internal, so the structure wouldn't alter, but it just depends on what's being selected.
Councillor Berry.
When discussing, I'm assuming one of the examples will be amalgamation. That's a big discussion point. Will things be looked at like staff retention and that if you're, you know, your township or your county amalgamates to one tier, and you're in a department and there's, you know, a city down the road that doesn't have same workload that's being added to you, will staff retention be looked into the study?
Yeah, staffing itself is, again, it's part of the implementation phase based on whatever the decision is made, right? That's part of the equation. I mean, I can honestly say, given our size, I think aggregately, I think we, excluding fire and EMS, because their emergency services are a bit different because you're carrying them through no matter what. I think we're 275 people aggregately across between the county and the four local municipalities. So I wouldn't, just from my experience, I don't think those numbers you'd be hard pressed to say we're overstaffed. Yes, there are areas where you're going to have redundancies and duplications and stuff like that, but any of that analysis would be really premature to comment on, depending where you're going to come out of, right? And where you're going to go. So I do know some in back in 2000, there's a lot of models that were put in place, and each municipality did it differently, some to greater levels of success than the others. But it is obviously part of the discussion.
Any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank you, sir. Obviously, this is something we're all going to have to keep a close eye on. We're talking about the destiny of our county, and it's something that we all need to pay close attention to. I look forward to hearing, how this project flows out.
Yeah. If I can just add one last thing, Your Worship, before I go. From a process standpoint, I am meeting next Thursday morning with the consultant to give the final instructions on the implementation of the program and the terms of reference. And at that point, it will be turned over to them. So your contact with respect to the project going forward will be through the consultant. And they'll make all the arrangements with respect to the engagement of the local councils, the level of staff involvement, and as well as the what I think will be a really well-received public engagement with respect to the process over the next 90 days. So the next outreach on specifically this will be from the consultant. However, if you're having any issues with the consultant and that, then the contact is back to me. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to?
I'm just wondering, Mayor Danielson, if you'd like me to read the resolution in case I need to amend.
Okay,
That's
go for it.
Be it resolved that council receives the affordability and governance study presentation from Gary Dyke, CAO Clerk, County of Haliburton, for information, and that council directs the Algonquin Highlands CAO and staff to be authorized to participate in the process for the affordability and government study, provide relative and municipal information and local expertise where appropriate, and that council requests the County of Haliburton to report back progress and matters of significance.
I think I didn't hear council involvement in there.
Okay.
You see any issues with that, Gary? Okay. How does that resolution sound to council? We did hear from Mr. Dyke that there would be consultation with, with staff. But I think it's important that we do include council in that equation as well.
Okay. And if I
So-
can just have 1 minute to I'll just craft to add that if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Barry, Councillor Short-Reed. And if you wouldn't mind just reading that one more time.
Of course. Councillor Barry, moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Short-Reed. Be it resolved that council receives the affordability and governance study presentation from Gary Dyke, CAO Clerk, County of Haliburton, for information, and that council directs the Algonquin Highlands CAO and staff be authorized to participate in the process for the affordability and governance study, provide relevant municipal information and local expertise where appropriate, and request the consultant include council for participation, and that council requests the County of Haliburton to report back progress and matters of significance.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, sir. Good luck with the rest of your day. The next delegation is with respect to the acquisition of Shore Road Allowance by Camp Candelar. And we have Leo Longo, partner from Aird and Bearless LLP, as well as Jackie Pye, who is the director of Camp Candelar. And so I understand that you're Ms. Pye. Are you going to speak first, or Mr. Longo is going to speak?
Mr. Longo is going to speak first.
Okay. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Worship and council members. My name is Leo Longo from Aird and Bearless. As you have identified, I'm representing Camp Candelar this morning, and with me is the camp director, Jackie Pye. We both intend to speak to this matter. Your Worship, in keeping with your reference to Cole's notes versions of matters, which I must say I haven't heard in a long time, and it brought a smile to my face, I will start by indicating where I'd like council to end in this matter. It's my request on behalf of the camp that, and I should note that also on file is our April 8 letter, which sets out more facts associated with the camp's operations, a subject survey of the shoreline road allowance, and also a second survey, a building survey showing all of the camp structures that are currently located on the shoreline road allowance. I'll refer to those very briefly. The request that I have of council today is that council resolve that it is prepared to convey the original shoreline road allowance to the camp. And that would be subject to two matters. One, that it would require that the camp pay all administrative, legal, and surveying costs associated with the transfer of title to the camp. And two, recognizing that this is a unique property and a unique applicant, that the municipality waive the 65 cent per square foot fee that is set out in your cost, your fees and charges bylaw 2020-21. The second thing I'd ask that the council resolve is that it direct its lawyer, John Ewart, to process this application for this acquisition upon payment of the deposit that is required under your fees and service charges bylaw, and the completion of the form that is attached to your acquisition or disposition policy, excuse me. So with respect to the request, Ms. Pye will review the points that address the waiver of the fees, primarily as the basis for this request and the unique applicant that you have before you today. So I will turn it over to Ms. Pye, and then I would like to summarize at the conclusion of her remarks, and then we both be prepared to answer any questions council might have. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Mayor Danielson and council. So nice to be here and to meet you face to face. We have substantial planning, strategic planning that's happening for Camp Candelar. I've been with Camp Candelar for 4 years, and since then there's been a new ownership with Appleby College, and I believe that the engagement with the township is to be reignited. We're pretty excited to get moving. And part of that is our restoration of the buildings along our shoreline. We have about 40 buildings that were born, that were built between 1947 and 1957. So there's a considerable amount of rebuild, restoration, or preservation that's required. And based on the goals of the camp, I just have 5 points that I wanted to review to justify the conveyance of the original shoreline to Camp Candelore. So the first one is that we are a multi-generational stewardship and environmental protection that we offer since this is our 80th year. We have been around since 1947 on Lake Kabakwa, and we've acted as a dedicated steward of the lake and the surrounding ecosystem as well. And securing the title to the shoreline can ensure the permanent protection of the waterfront from future commercial fragmentation or development pressure. And we are committed to being rooted in leave no trace. And we have a history of maintaining the natural integrity of the shoreline, as well as the 2 islands that are on the lake, one of which we lease, and the second one which we have been approached to adopt. And that's very exciting for us to be involved in that stewardship. The second reason is the substantial economic and social contribution that we make to the township. The camp serves as a significant and impactful year-round economic engine for the Algonquin Highlands. We have 4,000 youth who come through our doors and our property annually, and they do provide a steady 4-season support to local businesses, including hotels and cottages, contractors, local restaurants, outfitters, transportation and seasonal service providers, and also, of course, direct local employment and youth leadership training. The second reason is the preservation of a national cultural asset. So I'm not sure if you are aware, I'm sure you are, that the Candelore is the cornerstone of Canadian canoe culture in the camping environment, as well as outdoor education. We have historical ties to Kirk Whipper, who founded the Canadian Canoe Museum at Camp Candelore. It moved to Peterborough in 1992, and we still do have that gorgeous building, as well as we are a premier destination for wilderness travel here in Algonquin Highlands, as well as the camp itself. And we feel that the shoreline title recognizes the unique heritage and ensures that the camp remains a protected legacy for future generations. Fourth point is that we have institutional stability and protection against private development, which we are thrilled about. So with our new ownership through Appleby College, which is a not-for-profit, we have secured long-term financial resilience, as well as organizational stability too. And unlike a private residential owner, the camp's mission is to keep the land intact for educational purposes rather than for resale and not for subdivision. This institutional backing provides the township with a guarantee that the shoreline will remain mission-aligned as well as protected in perpetuity. We have a long-term commitment. And finally, the last one is that the alignment with public interest and discretionary authority of council. So while the township policy typically requires land acquisition costs, you do maintain the discretion and the authority to waive these fees when substantial community benefit is present. And Camp Candelore operates with a mission-driven community benefiting capacity that's equivalent to a nonprofit organization. Waiving the costs for this conveyance is strategic, and it's a strategic investment in the continued delivery of transformative youth programming at Camp Candelore and environmental ethics that directly align with the township's long-term goals. So that's all from me. That's my pitch for you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I think we'll go back to Mr. Longo for his wrap-up and then look at comments and questions from council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and Ms. Pai. With respect to the foundational basis for the request, it primarily seeks to one particular waiver, which is the acquisition cost of the 65 cent per square foot. And this is a situation where this property is unique, not only for how it has been developed, but who the owner is, and the connection now with the nonprofit college, Appleby, that we respectfully submit are reasons for, more than sufficient reasons for the municipality to support the camp's continued existence and delivery of its programs and contribution to the community by making this shoreline road allowance bring it into their title in a formal way to recognize the numerous buildings that are already there and have been used by the camp. And we recognize and we will work with Mr. Ewart to ensure that the full process of circulating to agencies, the newspaper notice, that all those costs are covered. And we would, of course, at our firm, bear the lion's share of the legal costs, but obviously Mr. Ewart will be reviewing and providing his advice to council. So the goal, again, from today is to get this green lighted by the municipality to indicate its willingness to convey the shoreline road allowance, to follow the process, but indicate its willingness to waive that aspect of the fees and charges bylaw in order to allow the camp to achieve the results that Ms. Pye spoke to. So to that end, I hope that the two-part resolution that I asked for of resolving to convey it on the terms we've indicated and directing Mr. Ewart to proceed with following the process are recommendations that this council is prepared to make today. And we will certainly follow up with Mr. O'Callaghan and Mr. Ewart as necessary to ensure that the deposit is filed with the municipality ASAP so that this process can move to a conclusion. Thank you very much. Pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I would just a couple of comments before I go to council for questions. Despite the eloquence of your submission and the points that you have raised, this is, I believe, an extremely precedent-setting request. I do believe that there are other camps in both Algonquin, Highlands, and the county who could, although not to the same magnitude or level, make similar arguments, which is something that we would have to consider. And I suspect that, before, I don't believe that we would be able to give you the green light today because we would be asking for a report to come back to us from our planning department. But, beyond that, I would go to members of council for comment and or questions. Deputy Mayor Dayu.
While right now is not the time that we will be making that decision, as the mayor has indicated, I do want to be honest with you in why I will not be supporting this request. I do support the conveyance. I think that's absolutely fine. But to waive the fees is something that I would not be able to support. We have a beautiful community full of natural assets, all of which have to be maintained. And we do hope and support and request that all of our property owners contribute to maintaining our shorelines and maintaining our natural heritage. It's not something exceptional. It's something expected. And when we can't have that, when we can't see that happen through general volunteer effort, we put it in our bylaws, like our shoreline preservation bylaw, which is there to ensure that our shorelines are protected. We are also a township and a county that are under considerable financial stress. We have some of the lowest pre-tax income rates among our permanent residents in the entire county. And yet, as you probably heard from our county CAO today, about 90% of our revenues come from property taxes. We have very few businesses, such as camps, supporting everything that we offer to our residents, such as roads and libraries and social programming and all of the things that our community needs to thrive. Our revenues per year are several times less than Applebee's or Appleby College's. And I do think, if I could be so bold as to say, I do believe Appleby would like to support our community as best it can. And I think the best thing it can do to support our community is to is to pay the conveyance, which would go a long way to supporting our programming for vulnerable kids in this community who can't afford to go to camp. So that is the reason I will not be supporting this request.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might have expected that to be a response that we would give once we've received a report from staff and, you know, had an opportunity to discuss it amongst ourselves, but points extremely well taken. Are there questions or comments from other members of council? Councillor Richards.
Should your request not be accepted by council today?
I'm sorry, Councillor Richards, would you mind speaking up? I can't
Okay.
hear you.
Should the request not be accepted by council today, is an alternative that council may not agree to either, but would an alternative such as a reduced shore road allowance being sold instead of the entire thing, or a reduced rate because it is such a very large parcel that you have, are those things that you would like us to consider?
Are you okay, Leo? Go ahead.
I would just like to make a cautionary note. Both of those items are not things that we normally would accept or approve. And not to say that the request couldn't come forward to us for consideration, but they are not things that we normally would do. We don't sell portions of the shore road allowance, nor do we reduce the fee on a normal basis. No, I would say no. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. A fee reduction has not been considered previously. Council has authorized the purchase of portions of a shore road allowance, but it is outside of our current policy.
I have a question for you, Council.
Mhm.
I'm curious how
Ms. Pai, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear what you're saying for some reason, but
Is
yeah,
the mic
there you
okay?
go. Yep, I'm on the mic now. Is that okay, Leo?
thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind starting again.
Yeah, awesome. I'm just wanted to reemphasize in consideration of the amount of buildings that we have that have been allowed to be built in the shoreline that exist currently that we really need to address their condition, because it's a long time ago, 1947 to 57, that a lot of these buildings were built. And just in terms, I just wanted to make a comment to you that part of our strategic planning is to make sure that we can address Algonquin Highlands and the children in Algonquin Highlands, especially around busing and costs for programming, to allow kids to come from schools and be bused in with day programs through a bursary program. So the fundraising and the income from Candelore right now goes to Applebee's endowment, for example, to help fund kids to go to camp. That's the purpose of them purchasing Camp Candelore. And in like terms, we would like to be able to use funding to be able to send kids to camp and also participate in those activities, school activities, like we do other places in the province. So I just wanted to make sure that those were known. And the question about the shoreline, just in terms of the buildings, I'm just curious how you've proceeded in the past, or if that's been something that you work with, companies or private property owners who have been permitted to build in the shoreline, and then if they have to do something to that building, do they have permission to do so?
I think in part of this aspect, we would have to defer to our planner for your statement, or with respect to your statement that we have allowed construction to take place on the shore road allowance. I would comment that our rules, with respect to planning, coming from both the province and the county, have changed considerably since the 1940s. And I would have to go back and have our staff check and see about, your terminology of allowed to build on the shore road allowance. It could be that they were just built on the shore road allowance without necessarily having formal approvals. But that's something that we would need to hear from our planner.
And
Councillor
Your
Berry?
Worship, Your Worship, if I might just be able to add to the Councillor Richards' comment. I've heard the question she posed, and it's certainly something that we would obviously give consideration to as this moves forward. And have discussions with your staff and with your lawyer when this returns to council. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, those are things that we do not presently allow.
No, I understand.
You know, within our policies and bylaws. It's not to say that it's not something that you couldn't request.
Mhm.
But, you know, just a cautionary note, that's not an automatic, not to say that it wouldn't be considered.
Mhm.
Councillor Barry.
Just wondering if Sean will be speaking to this, or will Sean come in
I
later?
think we'll be asking for a report to come back to us from Sean. You know, it's difficult to ask him to speak off the cuff at the moment.
I just wanted confirmation that as we've just come through budget as well, this, you know, obviously this is a sizable property, but with that, there's sizable cost to it as well. I seem to remember there was a figure that went around, it's probably around $175,000 to purchase this shoreline,
Mhm.
which would then equal over a 2% tax increase. Like if you were to compare it, you know, as a budget item, this is a sizable amount of money that would have to be paid across the entire township if we were to reduce that. Is that correct?
Well, they're separate items. I mean, it's not something that has, I mean, you're right about the amount of money and the impact that it has.
It would
But-
be that amount of money coming out of the town.
No, it wouldn't come out of our budget. That's-
No. It would be, I guess what I'm saying is, if it was another item of that sizable amount of money, that's how much it would equate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? So at this point, you know, we would simply receive your information and presentation. And obviously, you know, we will be asking for a report to come back to us from staff. That doesn't preclude you from having discussions with Mr. O'Callaghan in the interim to get clarification on some of the points that have been raised. You know, and I don't in any way want to take away from, you know, the part that you have played in our community and the points that you have raised about, you know, your support of our community. I would also like to once again stress the comments that Deputy Mayor Dayu has made, is that, you know, we actually have it within our laws that the shorelines must be preserved and protected, you know, by all who, you know, who have properties on the shoreline. So at any rate, once again, I would say thank you and ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report and request, or the request. Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards. So this would come back to council at staff's earliest opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, council.
I'll read the resolution, Mayor Dennison. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, the council receives the correspondence and presentation from Leo Longo, partner lawyer Aird Bayless, and Jackie Pye, director Camp Candelore for information, and the council directs staff to return with additional information for council's consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. I think at this point, despite the fact that we do have another delegation scheduled, that we might take a 10-minute break and then come back to our final delegation. Welcome back to the open session. We have one more delegation this morning. Jordan McDonald, who is the project manager for Avia NG Airport Consultants, to speak to a proposal for an airport development plan. We also have Mr. Thorne here. There's Mr. McDonald.
Morning, council.
Good morning.
Everyone can see and hear me all right?
We can.
Excellent. Yes, as you stated, my name is Jordan McDonald, project manager with Avia NG, and with me we have Janine Maurice and Dan Fox, who are both managers with our planning and advisory department. Avia NG is we're a consultant company, kind of smaller, based in Canada solely. We work in airports all across the country, and our main focus is specializing in infrastructure design and development, as well as operational services such as obstacle limitation services, airport zoning regulations, as well as planning, so airport planning and growth reports and investigations as well. And we also provide work with terminal buildings, design, development, and implementation as well. So basically we cover basically anything to do with airports with respect to the operational services, runways, the airspace, as well as planning, development and design, and terminal works. So I've been working with Adam with the township, and it looks like, or from our previous experience and discussions, Township's put out a request for proposal back in 2024 regarding a submission for an RFP for a land use development plan and marketing strategy for the airport. It was my understanding that I think nothing, or I guess you guys were unsuccessful in having applicants provide submissions at that time. So with my work with Adam, specifically at the airport, he reached out to myself, and we provided kind of a high level draft proposal that kind of be tailored to what you guys are looking for. And I guess we're here today just to kind of have an open discussion about it and answer any questions that you may have on what we've submitted.
Thank you. Anything that you wanted to add, Adam, before we ask questions or make comments?
Thank you. Nothing really to add other than we've had a great working relationship with Avion through the tree removal process. So it was why that I reached out to them to bring them in on this project. I asked them to come today just to help answer any questions that would be that council may have regarding the development or anything that they may be able to assist with going forward. So I just wanted to clarify why they're here today, and hopefully they can help us out with any kind of questions you may have.
My comments, just to sort of kick things off a little bit, is that I do know that although it's quite old, we do have an airport development plan that we can build on. There has been a lot of survey work done that would put us in a solid position to move forward with some ability to gain some revenue, to have some revenue to work on other aspects of the airport. I think that generally speaking, we're looking for opportunities for both aviation related growth and light industrial commercial growth on some of the properties that are surveyed off on Airport Road. I think I'm fairly able to say that at this point in time, although we have surveyed out an opportunity for another runway, that's not something that we're looking at in the near future. That's an extremely long-term plan. We do have a taxiway surveyed into the plan, so that if we went forward with developing some of the lots that are directly on Airport Road or behind those lots, we could look at both aviation related and or industrial commercial development. So I think we're well positioned to move forward, at least on the short term, with some development. As far as your proposal, I mean, I know we're looking at a pretty open-ended proposal at this time, but I think that there's a bit of overlap in what's being proposed, and I'm a little bit concerned on the range of prices for some of the things. And I think, before we came to an agreement on working with your group going forward for a plan, we'd need to tighten that up a little bit. But, further discussion, I'm sure would help with that. Anyway, I would look to council for comments and or questions. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Yeah, thanks for putting this proposal together. I've got a question about the granularity of the development plan options that you would provide. As no doubt you've seen, and as the mayor has just alluded to, we already have done quite a bit of survey work. We've got I think it's a 15 lot plan optioned there for us. I think there are even some costs, they're out of date now, but at what that would cost to service, et cetera. So that work has been done, and no question there could be a refinement there. But would your level of granularity include looking at, for example, the market? Who might be interested in taking some of these lots? What would they be able to pay? What's the affordability of this? Given that our runway is not long enough to take commercial flights or larger aircraft, what kind of limitation would that have on aviation industry interest in those lots? So it's how granular would you get? Because the brunt work is there to be refined, but it has been, at least one of those options has been done.
No, definitely. And I mean, we can basically get into as much detail as you would like us to. The main scope of task one is to basically interview all your current land users and potential proposed land users as well. So we would get down into the details for sure on whether you want to go, like 60%, 40% airside versus landside development. But it would come down to, yes, our interviews and discussions with potential land users that you have in your area.
Go ahead.
Great. That's great to hear. And follow-up question to that. Do you have folks in your, on your team who have really great experience working with quite small, highly rural economies and commercial businesses? Because we're really small. We're quite distinct from, my guess is, the majority of other airport hubs apart from the far north. I think that would be our best comparator in terms of industry, although I'm not an expert, I couldn't say.
No, definitely. We work specifically with smaller municipal and regional airports as well. I think Janine or Danny could definitely speak to this a bit more in depth as well with respect to your experience in planning works with the smaller other airports.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to a recent project that we've worked on. An example would be Huronia Airport, which is located in Midland. A very similar exercise to what you guys are looking for. Essentially, they were looking for reviewing their property and figuring out what land could they develop, what land should they reserve to potentially sell off or anything like that. So very similar scope to what you have, although you're not looking to sell some land per se, but it was a very similar exercise to this project. So we're very familiar. We worked all across the country and even some of the most remote northern airport in Ontario and across the country as well. So there's no problem. We definitely understand the scope and the size of the airport.
Other questions at this point in time from members of council? I would say, I'm really pleased to see the information that you provided to us. We have not been successful, when we put out RFPs for updating this plan for several years now. And I personally am very keen to see us move forward with at least some activity. One of my goals, and I think one of council's goals, is to see that the airport is operating, in the black. And I think that there are some very simple steps that can be taken to ensure that that happens, even on the relatively short term. I would say that at this point in time, we're likely to receive your presentation. We will have to have further discussion amongst ourselves about how we move forward with this. One other thing that I would like to say, although you've made several references to communications or consultations with the airport, I think is the way it was put in, and obviously that would have to include all the airport tenants. But I would also say that we do have a very strong and active and relatively skilled airport committee, which would have to be a part of this process. They've also been tasked with assisting in offering support or comments with respect to marketing. So that would be something that, you know, we would have to coordinate as well. But I would think unless other members of council are in opposition, that at this point in time, we would accept or receive your presentation, proceed with some discussions with our public works manager, and get back to you with respect to, you know, the direction that we'd like to take. Does that sound reasonable to council? Could I have a mover and a seconder to that degree? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Short-Reed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Shortry. Be it resolved that council receives the CND4 Land Use Development Plan draft presentation from Jordan McDonald, Engineer, Project Manager, Aviva NG Airport Consultants regarding the airport development plan for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you so much, and we will definitely be in touch with you.
Thank you for your time.
So moving on with the agenda, we have no presentations. Did anyone wish to discuss or pull any of the consent agenda items out? Hearing not, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve the consent agenda? Councillors Short-Reed and you need a seconder. Councillor Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shorey, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and enacted in one motion. Each matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. And the council approves the April 16, 2026 consent agenda and hereby adopts the staff reports and all the recommendation contained therein and directs staff to proceed with all the necessary administrative actions.
All in favor? That's carried. So next up is building and bylaw enforcement. Good morning again. Excuse me, Mr. Moore.
Good morning again, Mayor and Council. There we go. Yeah, so the first report is the monthly activities report. Very much ticking along. One seasonal dwelling was constructed or is in the process of being constructed. We received over 8,000 in permit fees and a construction value in excess of $1.5 million.
Any questions or comments from council on the report? Councillor Richards.
I'm just wondering on the short-term rentals is, are we still receiving like a lot of data from Granicus about those who are operating without a license in Algonquin Highlands?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have the information on that. That's involved with a different department.
That's one of the things that I was also going to ask about, not acknowledging that it is not specifically your department. I think that the council might be interested in getting a little more information on the number of applications that we received on, you know, if there is information from Granicus with respect to the number of short-term rentals that are operating without benefit of license, and maybe a little more information as well from your side of things on you know, some of the enforcement activities that have been undergone and what some of the problems were. I mean, I see here that, you know, they're operating without a license, but I think we just need to get a little bit bigger view of short-term rental activity, where we stand with the, you know, the revenues associated with that, the MAT tax.
Yep.
Through you,
Madam
Mayor.
CEO.
Yes, we can definitely get that information. Our planner will provide that to you.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you.
So any other questions with respect to the building and bylaw report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillors Richards and Barry. Oh,
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that council receives building bylaw report BLDG 00526 submitted by Greg Moore and dated April 16, 2026 for information.
all in favor? It's carried.
So next,
So I do know that part of the next report that you've got will be, coming under the bylaws section. But did you want to speak to your report on a maintenance inspection program?
yeah, just to say that basically, as the report says, in September, we were directed to proceed with a in-house dedicated a perpetual program, which is depicted here. We've since had the bylaw created. Staff has been over it and it's gone through legal, so it's here today for your adoption.
Are there any questions on the fee schedule? No, you did refer to a fee, a re-inspection fee. I guess the only question that I've got is if there was a lot of follow-up activity, other than just I guess you could have a re-inspection and another re-inspection. So that would be a flat rate each time you had to go back. Or, if it got to be more of an in-depth problem, do we have like an hourly rate in place that we would charge, or you're just sticking with the flat fee each time you have to go back?
Yeah, so there is no hourly rate. The flat fee basically, or the re-inspection fee, which I know is a little confusing, is that like the first program, it was a set fee to do the program of $179.11. And if you were not prepared, you got charged that fee again. This program, as you're aware, is levied. So in order to go back, if people aren't prepared, that was the reason for the re-inspection fee, part of it. The re-inspection fee can be utilized for building matters as well. But then the second fee that was imposed there was to, if an order was produced against a property and the people and the constituent did not follow up on the order in a timely fashion, then that's where we could go back and inspect the order for compliance. And that fee is quite a bit more, which is basically going to take care of any hourly rate that we may wish to impose. So a $350 fee is a pretty good hit to hopefully gain compliance without having to go POA and court system.
Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Just for clarification for the public, whomever might be listening, is this report that the CBO is putting forward is for the adoption of the bylaw to run the program. So this is all of everything that council has approved for the program is contained in the bylaw. The public meeting this morning was to amend the fees bylaw, which is separate, that will be used for the program, just for a little bit of clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report, and the bylaw will come up under the bylaw section? Councillor Barry, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council receives report BLDG 0072026 submitted by Greg Moore and dated April 16, 2026 related to the sewage system maintenance inspection program as information. And that council directs the proposed bylaw for the sewage system maintenance inspection program be tabled for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Next up, Parks and Rec. Good morning, Mr. Card.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
You'd like to provide us some highlights on your monthly activity report?
Sure, yes. So the past month has been very much about staff recruitment and then transitioning from winter, moving into spring. We've been very successful in our staff recruitment processes, and I'm also happy to announce, because I just found out after I put together this report, that we have been notified of approval of both the Stewardship Youth Ranger Program funding, as well as funding for 2 seasonal positions under the Canada Summer Jobs funding program, or a portion of those positions.
Good
So,
news.
yeah, so that's fantastic news. In a couple of things I want to highlight related to recreation is one of our goals for this year has been to implement programs that were related to the survey that was done by the Recreation Committee in 2023. And there's 5 various programs that are for highlight on this monthly report that are either still running or new that are directly related to that committee survey. And that's the line dancing in Dorset, which has been very well received. Our drum fit program, also very popular. Pilates, a wall and porch decor workshop, which fits under arts and crafts, and then a functional senior fitness program, which is actually also in partnership with the Senior Active Living Center, where we're able to get funding to help assist with that program. So all relatively new programs, well attended, and some that we continue to look forward to enhancing. Another thing I'd like to draw to council's attention is since the start of the year, as council's aware, we have our non-resident surcharge for use at the Dorset Recreation and membership. So we're now able to start tracking statistics related to that. So we now have information that we can report on. So each month, what I want to do is just to get a better idea of where we stand relative to what our thoughts and estimates were for resident versus non-resident, is show that number. And under Dorset Recreation Center membership sales for March, which would go from page 4 into 5, at the second to last bullet point, it talks about the number of residents. So 14% of the 101 new membership sales were resident. The remaining were non-resident. So quite a large percentage are non-resident who are buying passes at the Dorset Recreation Center. Finally, just a reminder, as everybody's excited about, next weekend is the Volunteer Appreciation event on Saturday. RSVPs have been rolling in. Today is the last day to RSVP for the event. So really looking forward to that, and encourage folks who have received the invitation to get their RSVP in, and we look forward to seeing you next Saturday.
Just on that particular point, we were only able to advise the airport committee yesterday about the volunteer appreciation and whether they were fully acknowledged or cognizant of the fact that they needed to RSP. I'm not sure. I'm just hoping that there will be just a little bit of additional room just in case somebody shows up that we weren't anticipating. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Thanks as always, Chris. Just a confirmation on the resident, non-resident piece. So because I haven't been at the desk and asked this question directly, I'm assuming it's there, but there is a mechanism by which people understand that if they have a cottage here and they pay taxes here via their cottage, they are considered a resident. They have the ability to learn that as they're signing up, yes?
Exactly. And through you, Mayor, that is in the information that we have on site, as well as what we put on our website and have made people aware of. So although we call it a non-resident surcharge, we really think of it as a ratepayers don't have to pay the non-ratepayer surcharge. So that accounts for those instances where people have cottages, but their main address is outside of the township. And we've actually been able to implement within our software, as we'd ask people essentially what their cottage address is, and we enter it there, and the software is able to pick up on whether or not it's within Algonquin Highlands. So it's working fantastically. Yeah.
With respect to recruitment of staff and, great news on that you provided. I did wonder about, if we're having any luck with finding swim instructors, or if it's too early to ask that, or.
Yes, so it's a great question. We did one round of posting and were unsuccessful. We just closed the second round of posting, and I have those applications sitting in my inbox now for review. So hopefully through the finalization of that second round of posting, we'd see that. But again, in discussion with people in similar roles, recruiting similar positions in nearby municipalities, and again, it's an industry-wide issue. And I've learned that some areas actually, and I'm speaking of in Huntsville and Gravenhurst, where they have pools, they're actually going as far now as paying for youth's opportunity to get certification to then become instructors, and are still having issues getting instructors. So I think industry-wide, what we're seeing, and from what I'm hearing, and again, not just the province, but across the country, is it's not a stream that youth are pursuing like they once were. So hopefully we're successful, but that's just to say that everybody who runs swim programs has the same issue.
Any other questions on the monthly activity report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive it? Councillors Barry and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that Council receives Parks, Recreation and Trails Report PRT 01126 regarding monthly activities for the month of March, submitted by Chris Card and dated April 16, 2026.
All in favor? That's carried. So the next item under Parks, Rec and Trails is the Dorset Lions request for a storage unit and space in the Dorset Recreation Center. And I will acknowledge to you, Chris, and I think I've apologized to you. I know that this might normally be an operational decision, and it's gone back and forth, and I think it's become a bit of a political discussion as well. So let's hear the comments that you've got to make, and then I'll look to council for their own comments or questions.
Sure, and through you, Mayor, thank you for that. I completely understand, and I'm happy to bring the information to council for their consideration. It was a request that had initially come to staff, first to our recreation coordinator, then to myself. I did, after discussion with you, Mayor, respond to their initial request to me denying the request, and that was based on available space as well as equity among various user groups. And I want to say now that absolutely the Dorset Lions Club plays an integral role in assisting to provide programming and support various services throughout the community, and we're very happy to continue that partnership with them. So I want to recognize that. What I had let them know, and what I'm providing to council for information for consideration today, is that yes, we recognize that there was some available storage space on site in the kitchen prior to COVID and prior to renovations. When we did renovations, storage space was lost, and a number of decisions had to be made around storage space. And what happened is, we put in our HVAC ventilation system for COVID requirements, which circulates fresh air through the building. That was in the gymnasium storage area. That took up a very large footprint within the gymnasium storage area. And we had to make a number of decisions related to that. We also, at the same time, downstairs, the way that things were reconfigured, there's now a hallway that goes into the weight room from the main hall that heads down towards the library. That hallway was a closet, a storage closet before. We lost that storage closet. At the same time as we allowed welcomed the Haliburton County Public Library back in to the multi-use meeting space downstairs, the storage that we kept in there, which is tables and chairs for events and for our own use, then came out of that space into one of the other available storage spaces. So quite a drastic change happened in the level of the amount of storage space that was available. At the same time, we were considering how we wanted to set up the space. We were looking at design, we were looking at color schemes, we were looking at furnishings. We built that location as a lounge area. It's both a lounge area and a transition area between the showers, the change rooms, and the rest of the facility. It provides a lounge space where people can access Wi-Fi, they can sit and read a book, etc., from the library or however they wish to use it. But at the same time, we decided that where we did have our own storage space with shelving underneath the stairs, we would no longer do that. It didn't fit the feel of the location and the aesthetics of what we were going for in that location. We were also able to make some decisions and move some of our seasonal event storage items, such as things for like Halloween and Christmas tree lights and those types of things, off-site into other storage locations. So we've done a fantastic job in making very efficient use in the space that we do have available. But we ourselves are regularly making decisions based on available space. At the same time, thinking about operational procedures and equitable access, what we do tell renters now and what staff are advised and what is in rental agreements is that all user groups, any renters have to bring things, and after their rental, their use, take them with them afterwards. It's something that gets considered in operations, even down to maintenance personnel who are setting up the space, cleaning the space, understanding what stays, what goes, and whose is what. So we do have a number of user groups who do provide community services, and it is something that is regularly requested on a quite frequent basis, and does affect in some instances even some volunteer run programs that we host the program through volunteers, where our volunteers are transporting their own stuff to provide opportunities within our space. So just for council's consideration, if we do want to approve this, I would expect that it may set precedent. There are some other groups who would likely want to be considered or may want to be considered. So if it's an approach we want to take overall, maybe we want to look at the most efficient use of space at each location so we can provide some sort of equitable access for varying user groups. It's not a route that I would suggest. However, that's just a solve for the thought that if other user groups come with similar requests, which we already have happening, how we might be able to manage them equitably. One item I'd offer, if council does want to go ahead with offering storage space, is an alternative option. And what that would be is, rather than have storage under the space in the lounge area, we would move some items around again, and we'd move them out of one of our storage closets downstairs and make some space available for the Lions in that storage closet there. All of those other things would still need to be considered. It would affect our available storage space, but It would also allow the opportunity for the space that is available under the stairs, if we wanted to utilize it for ourselves for any purpose in the future. We'd have that available, and we'd also still have a portion of that closet available. So respectfully, seek council's input.
Thank you. I don't want to make this any more complicated than it needs to be. I acknowledging that there are other groups who might wish to store items, and I think there are, some options that you can offer. I really and truly personally believe, and I know that Councillor Shortreed is going to want to speak to this, believe that anyone would be hard pressed to say that they've done more for the community of Dorset than the Lions have. I mean, they're offering assistance in so many ways, have contributed to the community, I believe, over a long period of time, more than any other organization. And I, personally, even though, you and I have talked about this, I still feel in my heart that, that we should be giving some consideration to this request. Looking at the unit and the space that's available, I don't see it as being something that would be, glaring. It would blend in reasonably well, but, I'm looking to other members of council and, see how we can resolve this. Councillor Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yes, and unfortunately, the Lions Camp Dorset has nothing to do with Dorset Lions, or they would be able to use the dialysis camp, but the Lions Dorset and the Lions Camp Dorset are two separate entities that are separately run and have nothing to do with each other. But the Lions do support, they volunteer, they come to Snowball, they show up for our kids fishing derby. I can't begin to account, they come and participate usually in our parade. Like, they do a lot for our community, and I really don't think it's asking a lot for them to have a cabinet under the stairs. It's not like it's an ugly cabinet either. They want something but that's it. Only the cabinet, no kitchen, no nothing anywhere else. Nothing, no fridge, no freezer, no kitchen.
Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yeah, I appreciate all of the considerations that you've put in the report, including the aesthetics, because the team did work very, very hard to make that happen. I do, however, see this as a how can we do it conversation rather than anything else. Just thinking about under the stairs for the moment, the Lions have proposed a fairly industrial looking cabinet, but I think even more space could be used if something more custom were built, to have almost proprietary cubbies that use the entire space right down into the very bottom corner, that different groups could use, maybe with individual locks on them. I do think there is a way that it could be done. I don't think terribly expensively. But if not that, then I'd like to hear about other options, especially if there are other groups asking for space. Maybe we can think outside of the box and think of a brand new idea. The community center is there for the community. We want them to use it. It reminds me a little bit about the church basements of the days gone by where, it was full of community stuff that was pulled out for the scouts or for the Girl Guides or whatever it might be. It would be great to really facilitate that community feeling. And if it isn't under the stairs, then it would be lovely to hear what else we could do that does not jeopardize the operations of the township, which of course are paramount.
I have one question before we go any further. Has the Lions actually purchased this unit already?
I'm not 100% sure. I got the idea that they did, but I can't say 100%.
I just want to hear from other, unless you're responding specifically to Deputy Mayor Dayu, I'd just kind of like to hear what other members of council have got to say, and then you can back to you.
Sure.
Any other comments from members of council? Councillor Richards.
Yeah, I recognize your sentiment. I don't want to overly complicate this with anything else. I think the unit that they're proposing is very sleek looking. It fits with the building. It can go under the stairs for now. If we find you have a utilization for that space in the future, I'm sure that can be accommodated somewhere else within the building without interrupting our storage in the kitchen or the gym or any of the other rooms. So I don't have a problem with this.
Their request.
Their request as is. You can put it under the stairs, or if you think that there's a better location for it other than under the stairs, sure. But let's keep it simple.
Mr. Berry?
I concur. I'm sort of hearing the same sentiment around the room. If there's a better option, or maybe we approve the locker as is right now, but with the caveat that if we need to, you know, change into a closet versus the storage unit, maybe that can be done down in the future.
So overall, I'm hearing that, you know, the council would like to support the Lions request, at least for now. And you know, if it proves to be problematic in the future, we can revisit this circumstance. Back to you, Chris.
I was just going to answer that I had been informed that they had purchased the storage unit. And it just in consideration of Deputy Mayor's Dayu's thought around what other possibilities might exist to facilitate other user groups, I wanted to add that it would be something that I'd be proposing is discussed for all locations. When I'm talking about getting requests from user groups about storage space, it isn't only at the Dorset Recreation Center. It's at all locations. When thinking about available space elsewhere in the facility, just in relation to Councillor Richards' comment, that is what I'm portraying, is that we are limited. There's no more space. You know, it's a matter of we can't often fit our own items within the amount of space that we have available. So
despite the challenges, I think I am hearing from council that they want to support this request, and you know, if it proves to be problematic in the future, we will have to revisit this, but I am hearing that, you know, for now, we'd like to support the request. Unless I'm hearing somebody that's saying, no, that's not what I meant. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to that effect? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council receives Parks, Recreation and Trails Report PRT 01226 regarding Dorset Lions request for storage space at the Dorset Recreation Center submitted by Chris Card dated April 16th, 2026. And the council supports the request for the storage space under the stairs until such time that the Recreation Center requires the space for building supplies and materials.
Are council in agreement with that? Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's carried. And I will say, it's somewhat presumptive of the Lions to have purchased the unit before they got approval to place it there. However, you know, I think we do want to support them, you know, given how much they have supported our community. And I believe overall beyond any other organization. Thanks, Chris.
thank you very much. Have a good day.
So nothing under environmental business. Next up then would be Public Works. So the first item, you know, unless you have specific comments with the airport committee meeting minutes.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I wasn't at this meeting, so if there's any questions or comments, I would direct them towards the committee members.
No, I mean, they're still, you know, looking specifically at planning for the upcoming fly-in. You know, there are a couple of items that they, you know, that they've got, you know, under their, that they would like to think about, but, you know, they do need to talk more with you about that. And I've tried to very much direct those discussions towards you. So, you know, just hopefully we can get you to an upcoming meeting so we can, you know, sort of land somewhere that's reasonable. Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific from this particular set of minutes, other than to say that things are coming together really well for the fly-in. It's looking really good. Hopefully, there's some more, a little bit more follow-up and reminder with the cars, classic cars. We do need to solidify who's going to be responsible for the, our own food service. But that can be done at the next meeting. Otherwise, things are coming along really good. We've got a band in place. Some of the artists are coming forward. We have lots of interest in the event. So let's just, this isn't wood. Touch wood that we have an excellent day. Are there any questions about the airport committee? Could I have a mover and a second then to receive the minutes, March 26th? Councillor Sturt Reed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council receives the March 16, 2026 Airport Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is your report on the Eller Airport Development Plan proposal.
Yes, thank you. So I put this report together. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for letting Avion NG come and speak today, and your questions to them will be greatly appreciated. And I put this report together because with the way budget was this year and we had some high costs on projects and things of that nature, I wanted to try and find a way to be a little bit more efficient for this year. And that's what I was proposing in this report, is that we hold off on having Avion NG perform any of the development plan until next year. And then as I was writing this out and working on it, I got thinking about it further. And I think that what we can do is some of the legwork ahead of time in-house. And it depends on the scope of work that council is looking for. That's why I'm kind of hoping we can have that conversation, is I think a lot of that could be covered in-house first. So some of the plans that I think council is looking for is further development of the airport. We certainly can look at our committee members, we can look at Avion NG, and we can look at other places that will help us find businesses, find development to come to our area. But I think we already have a really good plan in place from our last one that shows the property that we currently have, what we're able to do with it, whether or not we want to sever the lots off. I think there's a lot of conversation around that of, does the township want to be landlords, or do we just want to sell the property? Do we want to develop the property in the sense of, we have a customer come to us and say, I want to bring my $1 million business here, but I need you to help me. And, I think we need to cross those bridges as it happens. But the first initial steps, I think, that I would like to present to council is coming back to council with what property we have, identifying it, and then asking council for further direction on whether we want to lease this property or sell it. I truly believe that that's kind of the starting point to the development. And as I was sitting here earlier, and a great question came along from our deputy mayor, was looking for development and who can come to the area, and will there be a company out there that could help us bring people to our area? And I guess the question I may ask council is, does it matter what business comes to our area within reason, right? We don't want some crazy factory, obviously, but does it matter? Is that something that's important to council, or is it important to council that we have businesses that come here that want to bring work? We want to entice a company to come here and bring the work and bring jobs for people. So where does our scope of work as a municipality get involved with who gets to come here and who doesn't? Could it just be simply as we get a commercial real estate agent to sell, to investigate and sell the properties for us? And I think that's kind of what we can figure out as we go through this process. And if I may, what I would be suggesting is that I come back to council at a minimum once a month with a report that would be, this is what I'm proposing, and then we talk about it, discuss it, come up with a plan, and then the next month I'd come back with the, whatever those recommendations were. So if that was to figure out whether we want to sell the property, well, we need to know how much property. We need to know what the potential cost of those lots would be. And we would gain that information from a real estate company, a commercial real estate company. I think we have a lot of opportunity within the airport property as well as the development area to help potentially sell lots to help offset costs to develop lots on the property for businesses that will allow us to do that without a huge impact to our ratepayer. If we could sell off 6 lots and that offsets the cost of developing, say, 2 lots that brings businesses in, then I think that would be very beneficial and efficient for us as a municipality and for our taxpayers. I guess just in closing, there's a heavy draw to want to bring people to our airport. And as we have discussed in the past with our previous treasurer, she brought forward some numbers for us, and we were looking at, I think it was roughly about $1.5 million project, was going to sit around $100,000 a year. We're going to be really hard pressed to develop a property, put a building on it, and then ask someone to try and pay $100,000 a year to cover that payment. It's going to be impossible. But if we look at selling some property to help offset the cost to build a property or develop a property that we have and put a building on it, and then we lease that building, those revenues could come back as a profit to the municipality and help us get back into the black. That's kind of what I'm proposing here. So the report is to ask to have it delayed till next year while staff look at options and bring back to council.
Here's my thoughts. I do not want to delay the discussions until next year. Like, I think this proposal that we've got from AV, I mean, they might be highly skilled. They may have the experience in rural communities and larger communities. It's way too much money in my estimation, and the variances in the prices. It's just like, come on. I mean, $15,000 to do a PowerPoint presentation or to make a presentation. It's too much in my estimation, and I would like to see us be able to tuck this money that we did budget back into reserves for now. But in the meantime, I don't see any reason why we can't, rather than looking at it as a huge, big project, look at it in bite-sized pieces. You know, you and I had a bit of a discussion, and, you know, we do have some property that we could like sever into a couple of parcels and sell now. Which would give us a little bit of working money to look at, you know, I mean, we've got lots along along Airport Road that, you know, that we could market. It would give us a little bit of money if we, you know, if we sold a couple of properties, it would give us a little bit of money to look at maybe, I don't know, entrances, or if we need to do, you know, high-speed internet or power or whatever, you know, needs to be considered. But, you know, rather than looking at the whole big project as a whole, look at it in bite-sized pieces. I think we can probably do it in-house. But to say that, you know, that we want to defer it again until next year, like we've been deferring this for too long. So, you know, if we can look at it and work with staff and the committee, and, you know, some consultation with the tenants as well, I don't see why we can't you know, move forward with this in least in pieces and come to some determination on, you know, like, I mean, one of the discussions that, as you mentioned, that we need to have is those lots that are along Airport Road. Do we want to lease them or do we want to sell them? And, you know, if we're leasing them, does somebody really want to put out a substantial contribution to build something on land that they don't own? I mean, that's worked successfully in other airports, but those are the kinds of decisions that we need to make. But you know, I'd really like us to defer these guys for now and have some discussions amongst ourselves with yourself, and, you know, come like bite-sized pieces, work away at it, see what we can't do to increase the revenues a little bit. You know, see what we can do ourselves, you know, with your help. Thoughts from council? Councillor Shortreed.
I think that's a much better idea. I think staff, committee know our area and know who wants to be here than somebody who's from a city that yeah, they can talk to big businesses and say big names. It doesn't mean they're gonna come here. Right? Where staff, committee, everybody here knows who will be here, wants to be here. I think you have a much better perspective than somebody who's not here all the time.
I do like the idea of working with a commercial real estate agent to sort of get a better idea of the value of the lots. Which of course, you know, if we were going to sell them, we would have to do that anyway, but I think that's a good move forward. Councillor Richards.
Yeah, I have no appetite to hire these consultants at this point in time. I do think a more grassroots approach to this is the way that we need to go. I like what I'm hearing about the committee involvement because I think those guys are worth far more than planning just events to our community, especially when it comes to development at the airport. And I definitely like involving a commercial real estate developer into the mix to give some direction on what the market up here is looking for when it comes to commercial properties and what potential there is. I think we all know that our existing businesses struggle up here with housing and staffing shortages as it is. So to be looking for new businesses to pop up is quite a challenge at this particular point in time. We need to be looking at resolving that housing situation first and then trying to attract commercial development. So to develop a plan today, I think would just be adding to the plan we already have in that by the time we're ready to do that commercial development, it's going to be outdated. So, however, we got to do something. We got to start moving that needle in a direction. And so I think, doing it in-house, working with our committee, opening them up to a little bit more involvement in trying to attract, through their contacts, that aviation related component that would be interested in developing at the airport, I think is the right way for us to go.
One thing to keep in mind is that, even though we may be talking about, other than aviation related development, we may be talking about light industrial commercial development. Light industrial and commercial development can include housing components. So, if we're concerned about, like, I really like the idea of A, increasing, our tax revenues, but B, offering opportunities for employment. And if that can be, achieved through, a development that includes some housing component, which is something I'm pretty sure our bylaw allows, that, that's something that could be considered. I do want to say, and I mentioned to you earlier that I'd had a bit of a conversation with the committee last night. And, I said, look, it's early for me to be saying this because we're having a meeting today and, this information is coming forward to us today. So I can't, predict how it's going to go one way or the other. But I did say that one of the possibilities was that we would look at an opportunity to work on it bit by bit in-house. And they're really excited to help with that. And one of the things that they wanted to do and are going to do is do a bit of a committee resume so that council can see the skills that are there, so that there will be a greater assurance on council's part when we talk about the committee's involvement. Always under Adam's supervision and scrutiny, but that there really are some pretty serious skills on that committee that we can utilize. And I think would be of considerable support. So they're going to work on that and probably bring it to the next committee meeting that we have, just to help allay any concerns that the council may have about, the committee's ability to offer substantive contributions to any work that we might do. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I hear what's being proposed and I agree with it to a degree. I agree that we should unleash the committee. I think they would do wonderful
I
things
wouldn't
for us.
want to use the word unleash.
To use it, but I hear what you're saying. But I've got concerns still. And I think the mayor nailed it earlier this morning when you said, ultimately, what we want to see is that the airport working in its way into the black. And I agree. For me, that's the priority, is getting an economic strategy that brings the airport either into the black or as close to the black as possible, so that it's not subsidized by taxpayers who don't use it as much as other facilities that we offer. That's my number one priority. And my concern with the bit by bit approach, let's do this now and we'll do that later, is that I don't yet know how they would all tie into a financial plan. And by that, I mean, we would be doing certain things on the expectation or hope and a prayer that ultimately the financial piece will make it worthwhile later on down the road. In your report, you write the significant roof repair for hangars E, F, G, and H, and then repairs to hangar D are estimated at approximately 2 million. And that is a huge amount of money when we do not yet have an understanding of how the airport is going to make it worth the taxpayers' while to invest that money now. And I'm not saying that we don't have to do the work. That's not my point. My point is that it's the financial strategy piece that is most important to me. And I'd like to hear more about who would be the mastermind that would lead that thinking, not the land development thinking, but the strategic financial planning thinking, and how do we build that in to a process that is purpose built to be piecemeal?
I guess when I said, bite-sized pieces, maybe I should clarify that. I mean, we already have lots that are surveyed out and ready for sale, development, activity. There's a massive portion of airport lands that, in the back corner that I don't think we need to think about right now. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunity in the future, but we do have some ability right now to make some revenues to move forward. I see, I definitely agree that the estimated cost so far, although we haven't pinned down the cost for the roofs, we still got a little bit of information coming back to us. Those are facilities that we have in place, or infrastructure that we have in place that we need to repair. It's separate from the ongoing development of the airport. I don't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I do believe that there are, as Adam has said, I think that there are steps that we can move forward with now while working on a longer term plan. Councillor Richards?
Yeah, I think what the sentiment there though is that we don't want to lose sight of the fact that what we want to do is make the airport you know, in the black, if it's not better than that. I'd like to see it better than that. We also need the community here needs a stronger commercial base. I don't see that happening in the near future, but hopefully as part of our long-term planning on that commercial base, that coming through. But as Adam has said, this is about us trying to save costs to move that needle forward and not spending money without having a firm return on it. Take for example, the council decision a few months ago about putting out an expression of interest for a food truck. We're not going to spend that money if we don't have a viable business willing to do it to make that return on the investment worthwhile. We're not going to, build a building if we don't have somebody who's going to move in and it's going to be rented. And in addition to that, the involvement of the committee, they're running these events that are profitable every single time. They have a proven track record now of wanting to make that airport be profitable for our community, be involved in our community, and be somewhere that's worthwhile for our tax base. So I think that's the intention of everybody who's on this team, is to, make that airport make money, make it not cost the taxpayers a lot of money. Although it's definitely an asset to our township in emergency management. so I think we're there, but I think what the sentiment is let's keep it there. And I think that's what our deputy mayor is trying to say.
What I would like to see is that we receive Adam's report today and look to, you know, a little bit more detail from you at a meeting, say next month. Would that be possible?
Yep.
Councillor Barry.
I support referring the consultants at this point. I think I'm happy to hear Adam's willing to do some of the work in-house. I think that the committee is probably underutilized. I'm looking forward to hearing from them. I also think it would be nice to hear, like, I just the last couple weeks, I was looking at some of the other airports in the area, and they are marketing it just on their local websites of what are available. And I wonder if there's a way that we can think of ways to initiate the marketing and showing that it's not just aviation related, that we are looking at economic growth. We are looking at, what is that called? Like multi-use lot, like where you could have, you know,
We have opportunities for both aviation and, you know, standard industrial or commercial development.
and a lot of places are offering like residential, like work and live in the same location. Maybe that's something that we could be looking at too. I think looking at it as a broader marketing opportunity of the land opposed to just the land at the airport. I think that's something that could be done in-house and I think could be quite successful.
So could I have a mover and a seconder to receive Adam's report and to request that, you know, a little bit more detailed report come back at a subsequent meeting after possibly having a discussion with the committee? Adam?
If I may first, so I just want to clarify that I do understand the experience of the committee, but respectfully, I don't want to involve the committee until after we've had some conversations about what we want to do with the lands first. I absolutely love the committee. I want to make that very clear. But I also want to make it very clear that we have processes that the township has to follow. And what I would like to do is stick to those first and then involve the committee. I would like to get council's thoughts and opinions on what we want to do with the lots as far as selling, leasing, which ones, how we want to develop that area first. Once we can do that with council and staff, then we can involve the committee on marketing it and getting it out to the aviation world and things of that nature. Don't get me wrong, I respect every single one of them and I know they're all knowledgeable, but I'm going to do my job here first with council and then we'll involve them because council has just basically said through this meeting how much they want to involve them because we're underutilizing them, but we're really not because staff are doing their job. And I want to make sure that council is aware that we will bring them in when the time is right. And right now is respectfully, the time isn't right to bring them in on whether we should sell or not sell a property. And that's why I want to come back to council with probably at least 2 or 3 reports before we involve the committee, because there's some things that the council needs to address first. Again, selling, leasing, costs, what we want to do as far as development. And then once that's in place, the floodgates can open and we can allow the committee to get involved with a set of parameters, which we still have to figure out because I don't want to give them a list of you know, the doors open, let them run wild and they come back and then council's consistently having to say, no, we can't do that for this reason. No, we can't do that for this reason. And we have had that in committees in the past. And I know that's a huge struggle. I would like to be able to have a game plan in place to be able to present to the committee and say, here's your parameters, work within them and let your imagination run wild as long as you stay within those parameters. I think that's fair to the committee and I think that's fair to council as well, so that you don't feel like you're being bombarded with constantly saying no. So I just wanted to clarify that first. And the second part, if I can, is to Jennifer Dayu's comment about
Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Deputy Mayor Dayu, sorry, about your comment there was, I hear what you're saying. And I really want us to get there as well. I truly do. The hard part with it is without grant funding, without some kind of funding giving us that ability to put infrastructure on the property first and then just maintain it, it's going to be very difficult for us to operate in the black when we have to develop a property for $1 million. And if that's $100,000 payment, or if that's an $80,000 payment every year, we'll never get there because of the cost of maintenance, because of the cost of the construction, et cetera. So I think it's really important that the way I'm looking at this is yes, piece by piece, but a very quick piece by piece, to show that if we can sell these properties or whatever it is that we want to do with them, that we can utilize those funds to get something up and running at a very minimal, if any, cost to the taxpayer. And then that revenue will go back to the airport, bringing us back into the black. And I hope I explained that enough to show that I hear what you're saying. And I'm really looking forward to trying to find those ideas as well.
I don't know that we're talking specifically about, building some, substantive building. I think we were, I like the idea about having a discussion of whether we lease or sell. I think that we've probably got some property we can sell. We might have to do a bit of subdividing work. I know that there's specific interest in one piece of property that we've got. It would be sold right now. I know that we have a process that we need to follow when it comes to selling of land, but, I do know that there is land there that could be sold immediately. The lots along Airport Road, sorry, that's where the discussion comes in about whether we want to lease or sell, and what the upside and downside of are doing both of those things. So I still kind of stand by receiving your report. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is your idea of timeline on bringing proposals to council for what lots are sold, developed, released, and whatnot?
Through you, Mayor. So I'll be coming back to the May 7th meeting with a report that will show the lots that we have and the proposal of selling, leasing, severance, taxiway, things of that nature. Because we've been working on it for quite some time, especially with this, with Avion, to show them what we were thinking about for the future. So some of that information is already available. So it won't take much to put a report together and bring that forward for further discussion.
Excellent. Go ahead.
So involvement with the committee, you think would then be maybe able to start, say, by June?
I'm sorry?
Involvement with the committee in that could potentially come as early as June.
Well, it could. I think we need to have a further discussion. Let's see what Adam brings back. Also, I really would like council to see what skills there are available on the committee. So there's a little, sense of assuredness that there are some skills there. I mean, I will not say that there aren't some challenges, but I think that, that there's been some frustration on their part, that they do have some, excellent thoughts and ideas about what we could do. And we have built into the terms of reference for them, the ability to market or have input into that. So, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm glad to hear that you can bring us something, for the first meeting in May. That would be absolutely great. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we're not talking about months or
No,
a
I'd
year of
have a problem with that.
going on before the
We've
committee
been waiting for too
get
long.
going. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Might stick my neck out just a tiny bit here, and I do say this with the utmost respect for the department, the individuals, the processes that we have. I would be really curious to hear what the committee has to say before we make decisions on what we're going to do with various lots. I think one of their greatest gifts to us could be being able to say, hey, at this airport, this is how they did it. And they made it really, they really made it work. In this airport, this is how they did it. They didn't sell, they rented it out, or I think
They do have that kind of knowledge.
I would feel more comfortable not knowing anything about airports to hear from the experts on airport use before county or council makes a decision on disposition of those lands. And I know that is directly contrary to what you've just said, but it is how I feel.
I'd love to hear from them.
Well, there's no reason why we can't have a discussion with them. I mean, the buck stops right here. This is where, you know, the decisions are made. You know, we can hear recommendations from the committee and see what they think. There's an opportunity to speak to them while Adam is preparing his report. I know that you're not like 100% on board with that, but you know, there is, I think we can hear from them what some of their thoughts are on what has worked or what has not worked. And I know that there's at least several members of the committee who have some real knowledge and experience with respect to that.
Through you, Mayor, it's not that I'm not on board with that, not at all. Like I said, everyone on that committee, I respect them all in their separate fields. I think what I'm looking at for me is a little bit more basic. I don't think it needs to be an extreme elaborate plan here. What does council want? Does council want to lease property or do they want to sell property? Once we establish what properties we have and what you want to do, then we have to take a look at the next step. Are we developing it or are we just going to leave it and sell it as it is? And then we can involve the committee because, and this is why I said I didn't want to bring the committee in so soon, is because yes, they're going to come in with these great ideas. And I can sit here and tell you all kinds of great ideas that I have that I think would be great to have there. But the end of the day, before we get that far ahead, what does council want to do? Do you want to sell the property and take those monies and develop what we already have available to us? Or do you want to lease those properties? And I think you need to make that decision when you realize what we're going to get for those properties. If a property is worth $100,000 to sell it, great. Or is it only worth $2,000 a month? And I think that helps the conversation of how do we get back into the black? Because if we are leasing property, and I'm going to throw it out there, we have 10 properties at $2,000 a month, $20,000 a year. Well, that's not a lot, right? We're not going to get back into the black with $20,000 a year. So if we sell it and we have 10 properties and we sell them for $100,000 each, well, then we're into a little bit different of a plan to build on some of the property that we already have on the airport that we can develop, that we can build something or have someone build their own thing. And that's what brings us into the black because we just built a building that someone wants to lease from us at $2,000 as an example. And then that's what helps us. And I think you will see that in the next 2 reports that come to council.
I want to just make a little bit of a differentiation because I can see the difference between aviation related. I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about, you know, what we might build to lease out or for use by, say, an aviation related business as one thing, where the lots along Airport Road are something different. I mean, I do think we need to determine, and I agree that I would like to have the committee's thoughts on whether lease or sale has worked in other areas. Council does need to make that decision. When it comes to developing those lots, I don't see us developing them beyond putting in a driveway access, making sure that they have hydro. Beyond that, like, you know, let's see what level of interest we get. Let's find out what they're worth, both by lease and by sale. If, you know, if we can talk to real estate agents about that. But Councillor Barry.
I like the wholesome discussion we're having now. I like the idea. I think we're all sort of interested in the same thing. I personally really like the idea of before we just look at what land we have and what we can do with it, I personally would like to hear from a commercial real estate agent. I'd like to hear from the committee. I wouldn't mind hearing from like HCDC and maybe the Chamber of Commerce just to see what trends are happening. Like we might have like we're not real estate and we're not, you know, we're not in the business of selling land. I think that hearing from experts is probably a good wholesome way to see what trends are happening in the area.
I see talking to real estate agents and I see talking to the committee members. I'm not sure about HCDC and the Chamber of Commerce and what their level of expertise is with relation to airports.
But we're talking a business park, we're talking commercial land, like what people are coming to them for looking for in their needs. I see it as a growing economy.
I'm still kind of going back to, let's receive Adam's report today and look forward to receiving his report at the first meeting in May and seeing where this discussion continues. And what he brings back to us. I mean, he's heard, that we're looking for some information on values, on processes with respect to, sale versus lease. And maybe some, more information about where we might concentrate, our view for now. On some of the lots that are already there that we own, I'm talking about, I can never remember the name of the property that, the house that was there.
The property where the Montgomery house was?
The Montgomery house, where the Quonset hut is and the access to, I mean, that's the final, at this point in time, the only access to the runway that's remaining. And I can see, you had mentioned the opportunity to maybe subdivide that property so that we could retain, where the Quonset hut is and the access to the runway and still sell a corner property, for a good value. Let's see what Adam brings back to us in May. He's heard what we're kind of looking for and continue with this substantive discussion. And in the meantime, the committee is going to put something together that just sort of says, here's what our levels of skill are, here's what our experience is. They're not going to give you reams of pages. They're going to, give it, I think I used the Coles Notes version earlier. And that's what they like to provide, just so that the council here knows. Adam has a better idea of what their level of knowledge is, but I'm not sure that the council knows what they've got for experience, and there's some real value there. So can I have a mover and a seconder to move in that direction? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed. And meanwhile, we will have, at least $100,000 that was budgeted for to put back into reserves for now.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that Council receives Public Works Report PW 011 Airport Development Plan Proposal submitted by Adam Thorne and dated April 16th, 2026 for information. And the Council directs staff to place a hold on the development plan with the VIA NG Airport Consultants and proceed with an internal review of steps that can be taken in incremental phases. And finally, that Council requests staff bring back information to Council for consideration regarding phased approaches and direction.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Well-worded resolution. Okay, I think that we can safely say that we're going to take it. Sorry, Adam. I really like this next report that you have brought forward. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, the speed bylaw.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Just as over the years have gone, we've seen a couple of requests for different speeds and things of that nature that have come across. And upon reviewing that and other information, we don't have a speed bylaw for all of our roads. Just as time has come by, something comes up and council has decided that they want this section or this road set to a certain speed, and that's perfectly fine. Currently, we have 7 specific speed bylaws in place. So what I'm proposing here is that that we set a speed bylaw for 60 kilometers an hour for all roads, unless they are signed less than. So essentially, if a road is signed at 60 kilometers an hour, it would be 60 kilometers. If it is signed at 40 kilometers an hour, then it's 40 kilometers an hour. So this just basically puts a speed to the road versus what the Highway Traffic Act would have it at, being like an 80 in a non-rural, which is extremely fast, right, and unsafe. So I think that if council agrees to this, this also doesn't affect whether or not, if somebody came forward and said they wanted speed zone put in, or a smaller or a lower speed at a certain area, and council so chooses to do that, this bylaw would not impede that. You could still implement a separate bylaw if you so choose to.
So by putting a default speed limit in place at 60 kilometers an hour, Would we then be required to sign
That's
all
correct.
of the, okay.
Yes, so the way the Highway Traffic Act works is that their default is
If they're
80
not
and
signed.
50. Yeah, and if they don't, if even if we created this bylaw and say, I'm gonna use Tulip Road as an example, as we are identifying it as a 60 km/h road, if we do not sign it, then it stays at 80 as per the Highway Traffic Act.
Questions or comments? Good plan. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? And we'll see the bylaw under the bylaw section. Councillor Richards, Councillor Barry, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that council receives Public Works Report PW 01226, speed bylaw submitted by Adam Thorne and dated April 16, 2026 for information. And that council concurs with the recommendation that all maintained roads in the Township of Algonquin Highlands have a default maximum speed limit of 60 km/h unless otherwise posted at a lower limit. And further, that council directs the bylaw to reduce the speed limit as proposed be tabled for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, your monthly activity report. Anything you need to highlight on that?
I always find it funny when we do these reports, these monthly reports, especially on a day like today, where, you know, I could highlight that we had the significant weather event for snow. And here we are today, you know, in a rain event that a local municipality has declared. So it's interesting, our Canadian weather, that's for sure. Other than that, you know, I wanted to showcase again, seeing how we're on the airport discussions of today, is that the airport certainly helped Hydro over the past month with the significant weather event. We had lots of fly-ins this recently, and you can see that in our fuel. There was an increase in our fuel purchases. M&R and Hydro reached out to our airport coordinator and coordinated all of the fuel sales and helped them, you know, learn our fuel system, because there's new pilots and things of that nature. So that was really great working with them. I think the day I was down there helping them, I think there was 20 Hydro trucks in the parking lot. The parking lot was completely filled with Hydro trucks. And all they were doing was flying out and checking poles and checking areas. So it was really great to see that. M&R has gotten started down there too, so their helicopter has been going in and out. I guess the next one here would be the successful fulfillment of the Public Works Supervisor. So as an interim role, we have moved someone up from within, and I'd just like to say that so far he's been doing an amazing job. Yeah, he's doing really well. So that's been great. And other than that, unless council has something that they would like to ask me, I think that's it for me.
Speaking of emergency response and particular events, I understand that we have been requested to offer assistance to Minden Hills and possibly beyond to help with sandbagging operations and, you know, whatever support they need. So appreciate, you know, the assistance that our staff are giving, and just so council knows that that is taking place.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, Public Works and the rest of the municipality, PRT, bylaw, fire, our CAO was gracious this morning to allow us that they were all put together, and they all went down to help out and pitch in and do their part. So it's been great.
Much appreciated. Any questions on the monthly activity report? Could I have then a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Short-Reed and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that council receives Public Works Report PW 01326 submitted by Adam Thorne and dated April 16th, 2026 for information.
All in favor? That's carried. So now we will break for lunch. Sorry, Chief. Welcome back to the open session of council. Next up on the agenda is the fire service business. Welcome, Chief.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council.
You got some highlights you'd like to bring to us?
Two highlights, both related directly to training. The one thing we speak about in the report is SP 103 training. That's our wildfire training. So we did get reviewed by the MNRF to see our standard for wildfire training, and it meets all the requirements. So it's nice to see that all our firefighters are to that level. And the secondary thing is I want to speak about is our certification. Back when I first started here, they just introduced the certification within the province for firefighters, for officers and firefighters, and they're due to be certified for the position in for the middle of this July. And I'm happy to say that all our firefighters will be certified for the positions they're doing. So that's nice to see. That's hard work of our firefighters and our deputy chief of training. So
excellent news. Any questions for the chief? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the fire services report? Councillor Barry, Councillor Short-Reed. And my apologies for having made you wait.
Oh, that's perfectly all right.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Short-Reed. Be it resolved, the council receives fire services report FD 0526 regarding monthly activities submitted by Michael French and dated April 16, 2026 for information.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is finance business. And Lauren, are you the presenter or? Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Danielson. Yes, so the report that's before you is submitted by Jeannie. This is in regards to our WSIB rebate that we've received. We have received this report in the past. And so this report just recommends that we put the surplus in towards the project to the replacement of the ERP. So it would go into the Special Projects Administration Reserve to offset that cost. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions on that? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve that recommendation? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Short-Reed. Funds welcome.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Short-Reed. Be it resolved, the council received report TT 1026 submitted by Jean Hughes and dated April 16, 2026, related to the WSIB rebate of surplus of funds for information, and that council concurs with the said recommendations and provides staff direction accordingly.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next up is the award of the Enterprise Resource Planning RFP.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So we are here today to present our report on the procurement of the Enterprise Resource Management or Resource Planning System or ERP system. As Council is aware, our current ERP system does face an end of life effective December 2029. So in response to that news, and in alignment with the countywide supported digital IT strategy, staff collaborated with neighboring municipalities and issued a request for information at RFI. Following that RFI process, council supported staff to proceed with a formal RFP for this ERP solution in collaboration with participating partners. So staff have successfully issued an RFP with the County of Haliburton and the Township of Minden Hills, and respectfully recommend proceeding with the joint ERP implementation model and award the contract to Encore Business Solutions. The total value of the recommended contract is $828,298, which includes software licensing and implementation services. Under the proposed cost-sharing model, the township's portion of the contract would be $283,412.92, with the remaining cost to be allocated between the County of Haliburton and the Township of Minden Hills. And if council is supportive of the recommendation, the County of Haliburton would be the ones to enter into the agreement on behalf of the township for a 5-year term, inclusive of any annual software licensing. The Director of IT did present this information to County Council and was approved on April 8th.
Danielson, if I may add,
Mhm.
I just wanted to provide comment that this project is a project we can we can feel pretty proud about, because it was one of those projects you go into when you're having more than one township work. You sometimes present challenges, but this actually came with the outcome we were hoping for, to land on a joint tenant model. And so it's very exciting, and we're very proud to be moving forward with the partners that are participating. So that's part of the software, and when you're ready, we can move into the analyst.
Thank you. The only thing that I was going to add is that one of the questions that I did ask, given that it's Algonquin, Highlands, a county, and Minden Hills, and that there are 2 other municipalities that are not participating, that I understood that it was a matter of timing, but they are going to be using the same system, which will be important going forward, or at some point in the future. So, I'm glad to see that we're once again partnering with both Minden Hills and the county. So questions? See none, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendation? Councillors?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I just wanted
You're on the
to
line, sorry.
I just wanted to also talk about the business analyst that the County of Haliburton has requested. So a request was made to to Algonquin Highlands to consider participating in cost sharing for a business analyst resource. Initially, when we thought we'd have to be going single, if we weren't sure if we were going to have a single or a joint tenant, we felt that we had the capacity within. But now that we've selected a joint tenant, we'll be moving together more every module. That's our goal, is we're going to work together. So the business analyst would actually be a good resource to have. So if council's in favor of participating, the position would be for a 24-month contract. And our portion of it is approximately $43,000 a year. And so we would have a cost sharing agreement with the county in regards to that position if council's supportive. So I just wanted to add that in.
Now, did I understand that the county's going to cover that cost this year? But it would be going forward that we would share it, or is that not right?
If I may, I believe what will end up happening is it'll be just very prorated. So it won't be a 43,000 because it's not January to December. That's how it's been calculated. So there might be a little portion this year, a full portion next year, and then a little portion in 28, just depending on the hiring and the 24-month timeline. Yeah.
Questions? So we have a mover and a seconder, I think.
I apologize. I missed those.
Councillor Short-Reed and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that Council receive report DC 0926 regarding the awarding of RFP CTYIT 2025-5 for information, and that Council approve proceeding with the joint ERP implementation model in partnership with the County of Haliburton and the Township of Minden Hills, subject to the respective council's approval, and that Council approve participation in the collective ERP initiative, including awarding RFP CTYIT 2025-5 to Encore Business Solutions, and authorize the County of Haliburton to enter into the agreement on behalf of the Township of Algonquin Highlands for a 5-year term, including annual licensing costs, subject to the respective council's approval. And that council approve the financing plan as presented in the said report for a project total amount of $283,412.92 payable to the County of Haliburton, and that council approve participation in the shared business analyst resource with the funding to be drawn from working funds if required, and authorize the CAO to enter into any necessary cost-sharing agreements for the position with the County of Haliburton.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. So you'll see also under finance business that the estimates of expenditures and revenues for the year and the bylaw to adopt tax rates will be under the bylaw section. Nothing under communications. Under administration, we first have the Stanhope Museum Committee update. Anything that we need to hear about?
No, I do think that maybe at the last meeting, I did give a bit of an update, but we're approaching opening this spring. There's some discussion in place about the garden contract, which was talked about at the last meeting. And we're, continually updating and preparing for our 2026 exhibits.
Do we have enough hosts lined up?
Mhm.
Excellent. Any questions on the Stanhope Museum? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the minutes and the update? Councillor Short Reed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, the council received the March 16, 2026 Stanhope Museum Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. The second item under administration is the bylaw to appoint our new treasurer, and that being Sarah Hudson. Congratulations. We're really pleased to see the position stay in-house. I'm pleased also to see that you're being appointed as the treasurer and a deputy clerk. So, you're just going to continue to multitask.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well done. Next up is planning. Good afternoon, Mr. O'Callaghan. First is your planning department update. Any highlights that you'd like to bring to us?
Thank you. Nothing particular to highlight in the report. Just going back to some comments, council wondering how much shore road allowance we still had. I did put some very, very rough numbers together, but based on some research, it looks like there's approximately around 36% of shore road allowances on average when looking at lakes in the area.
Remaining
to be purchased. And again, very rough estimates, that would work out to about 32 years of shore road allowance sales based on the current average number of applications we're receiving.
Good information. Thank you. Any questions on the planning report? I'm quite pleased to see the short-term rental information. You might have heard some comments this morning about that, looking for a little bit more information to see where we are. There was a question raised about, the kind of information that we might be receiving from Granicus about operations that are running that have not applied for licenses. So I'm not sure if you can give us any highlights on that, or that's information we could seek.
Yes, no, we have been actively reviewing the Granicus portal, which will show properties that are advertising without a license, and we are following up on those properties. So it's a mixture of people either removing those ads or making application for a short-term rental license. But yeah, we are most certainly monitoring that.
Any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then? Or did we get a mover and a seconder? Pardon?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Barry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, the council receives report PL 03526 submitted by Sean O'Callaghan and dated April 16, 2026 for information.
All in favor? That's carried. The other item on the agenda is are the minutes from March 27th of the Committee of Adjustment. Are there any questions about those minutes? If not, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive them? Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Counselor Shore Reed, seconded by Counselor Richards. Be it resolved, the council received March 27, 2026 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next are the external board meetings. Any update on Dorset Partnership and or the Health Hub? Have they had their meeting yet?
Well, the good news is they've set a date. The bad news is it's May 7th, our council day.
Oh, so it'll be later on in May that we'll actually hear about.
Well, I'll be here. It's at 9 a.m. till noon and we have council that day.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm assuming that we would be able to get some follow-up information
Yes,
after
yes,
that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, anything on Upper Trent Water Management or Muskoka Water Shed Council?
Nothing on those two. As discussed at our previous council meeting for the FOCA working group, they do intend to bring forward a delegation, hopefully at our first meeting in May.
The first meeting in May.
Yeah.
Okay, look forward to hearing that. I know there's been some good work done there, so. OPP, I think I reported on the last OPP board meeting that we had. I did hear from the detachment board chair late yesterday that, he's staying in close contact with the detachment commander and anyone, responsible for the state of emergency that's been declared in Minden, and just to see if there's, any synergies there, any support that the board can provide. And that's about all that I have heard from the detachment board. Anything from the library? Not really, no. No. Anything on community safety and well-being?
Yes, so on the 30th of April, there's going to be a really interesting stakeholders gathering in Minden. It's called No Wrong Door, and it's for all of the service providers supporting mental health and well-being, social services, community development, these sorts of things, to come together to continue to pinpoint gaps between service connectivity. And what you can take by the name No Wrong Door is that if someone is in a stressful situation or in an acute situation and they need support, the idea is even if they go into the agency that is not the agency responsible for giving them that support, the agencies themselves are so well connected that it is a sufficient door to get the support you need. So it's all about making sure that those gaps are being, are being spotted and then sewn up. I think it's a really great idea, and I look forward to it. It's happening on the 30th of April, so it's gonna
Oh,
be
that
pretty
sounds
soon.
excellent.
Yeah,
And it's great to hear that there's no wrong door.
that's right. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely spot on. If you're having a problem domestically and you walk into the library, that the librarian will be able to say, you know what, I've got the phone number that you need and I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help make sure that you get the person you need and you've come to the right place. I think it's a brilliant premise.
Excellent. I just as a reminder, I think that it's May the 1st, that is First Responders Day. From I think 3 till 7, if I'm not mistaken. But I would urge any and all members of council to, to visit the fire halls, particularly ours. But any of the fire halls or detachment, the police station, any first responders, in the county, I think would welcome any of us showing up. Should be good. So urge you to do that. Anything from, you probably do have a few comments to make on the Muskoka River watershed.
Yeah, believe it or not, we are under flood warning at the minute.
Really?
Surprise. And in fact, the last time that we gathered here at council, and I said we were at the minimum level of the 4 stages, it was within about a half an hour of ending council that they raised it to the next level. So things changed obviously very quickly. Adam alluded to that a little bit earlier today. Things have changed quickly. And while the Muskoka watershed is not the same watershed as Gull River, et cetera, and there are not as pressing concerns there, it is still very much under flood warning at the minute. And I think the only other thing I'd raise, because they raise it with us every time we meet as a committee, which is really a committee, but just to receive information from the MNR. We're not responsible for any of this. But what they tell us every time, and it's worth the public understanding too, is that the process they have for controlling the water level through, removing of the logs of the dams, et cetera, it's a long game activity. It, under no circumstances do those activities help prevent acute flood possibilities. It is a year-long process to make sure that across the entire watershed, water levels are staying within a controllable level. But if something were to happen, as it's happened in the last couple of weeks, there is no damming system anywhere in the
No
region.
dam system anywhere.
Anywhere in the region which is capable of stopping a flood like this from, like what is happening down in Minden, from occurring. And I think it's a worthwhile thing to have in mind, because you do see on social media quite a bit people blaming the MNR or their local MPP for not fixing this flooding problem. We've known for 4 days, why haven't they fixed it? And frankly, in order to increase the level of controls required to stop an emergent flooding situation, we'd be looking at billions of dollars across and huge visual infrastructure changes across the province. It's not what we've got. And I think they deserve some credit for doing what they're doing and doing the best they can with the resources they have available.
One of the things I would add to that is that when the Coalition of Equitable Water Flow have their annual meetings, they always have a representative from Parks Canada. In fact, the person who's responsible for controlling the whole system gives a really, really good and detailed explanation of how things work, and it would, give people a better understanding of those things that you've just mentioned. Yep. Madam CAO.
Just wanted to update council on the Gull River watershed, and that the chief is attending those freshet calls that are happening every other day at the moment. And one of the things that they had mentioned today was that like Algonquin Park currently contains 77 millimeters of snowpack, which when it turns to rain will come down through the system, or it turns to water will come down through the system. So they're anticipating that, and that the Gull River is anticipated to crest on April 24th. So there's more to come.
And
yeah,
more rain to come.
Yeah. So he will be attending the call again tomorrow. So
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
more to come on
That's
that.
good. As far as county council update, I think you kind of heard it this morning. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that project flows out and what comes from it. And I just urge everyone in the county to kind of keep an eye on what's happening, when the information comes out, keep themselves informed, because I think, there'll be an impact on everyone. Are there any notices of motion today? Hearing none. Did anyone wish to comment on the correspondence? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve the correspondence listing? Councillor Richards, Councillor Berry.
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved that council receives the April 16, 2026 correspondence listing for information.
All in favor? That's carried. We have a long list of bylaws. Could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the bylaws? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Short Reed. Are you allowed to read the bylaw appointing yourself? No, just kidding.
I apologize, Mayor. Was the seconder Councillor Short Reed?
Yep.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second time, the second and third time, passed and finally passed with a corporate seal affixed. 2026-36 to prescribe a speed limit for township maintained roads. 2026-37 to amend bylaw 2025-23, adding election sign penalties. 2026-38 to adopt the estimates of revenues and expenditures for 2026. 2026-39 to authorize the levying rates of taxation for 2026. 2026-40 to amend the comprehensive fees and charges bylaw 2025-120. 2026-41 to implement a sewage system maintenance inspection program. 2026-42 to amend bylaw 2022-49 being the comprehensive zoning bylaw AHZBA 00126 McKay. 2026-43 to appoint a treasurer deputy clerk.
All in favor? That's carried. Next, could I have a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that bylaw 2026-35, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council proceedings of council held during its April 16, 2026 regular meeting be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with a corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Berry, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the meeting is hereby adjourned at 1:13 p.m.
All in favor?